Welcome. I'm Magnus, and I bring you horror stories to help you relax, or maybe to keep you up at night. Tell us where you're from. Are there spooky forests nearby? If you're a fan of scary stories, subscribe and drop a like. Get cozy, and let's begin. My name is Thaddeus Mercer, 32 years old, and I've been living in Portland for the past 8 years. Life in the advertising industry had been wearing me down to the bone, so when my vacation days finally accumulated enough, I knew exactly what I needed: solitude in nature. My therapist had been suggesting a digital detox for months, and the idea of escaping to the mountains seemed perfect. I chose Rocky Mountain National Park near Estes Park, Colorado, despite my cousin Reed's warnings about how isolated it gets once tourist season winds down in late September. I packed my Toyota 4Runner with probably too much gear, a habit from my anxious father who taught me to prepare for any scenario. The drive from Oregon took nearly 15 hours spread over 2 days, but the changing landscape kept my mind occupied. Cities gave way to farmland, then to rolling hills, and finally to the imposing silhouettes of the Rockies. As I approached Estes Park, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the winding road, creating patterns that danced hypnotically on my dashboard. Reed had connected me with his friend Maya, who worked as a seasonal guide in the area. She'd recommended a less-traveled camping zone that allowed vehicle camping, perfect for my plans to sleep in the back of my SUV rather than a tent. "You'll love the Moraine Park section," she texted. "But this time of year, ask for Ranger Phillips when you check in. He knows the best spots away from the wind." I'd saved her message and felt a sense of insider knowledge as I pulled up to the entrance station. The woman at the entrance booth seemed distracted, barely glancing at my reservation before directing me toward the ranger station for my permit. The small wooden building sat nestled among tall pines, the official emblem gleaming on its door. Inside, a tall figure stood with his back to me, organizing maps on a wall display. When he turned, I noticed his name tag, Ranger Donovan, not Phillips. Something in his smile didn't quite reach his eyes as he asked about my camping plans. "First time in the Rockies?" he asked, his pen hovering over my permit form. I nodded, explaining I was looking for Ranger Phillips as recommended by a friend. Donovan's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Phillips is off rotation this week, but you're in luck. I know exactly where to put you. Somewhere special." He circled a spot on my map, an area marked only as limited access, authorized vehicles. When I questioned this, he waved it off. "Perk of the job. I can authorize whoever I want." The drive to the campsite took longer than expected, winding up fire roads that didn't appear on my GPS. Cell service disappeared about 20 minutes in, and the terrain became increasingly rugged. My 4Runner handled it well enough, but doubt crept in. Was this really an official camping zone? Just as I considered turning back, the trees opened to reveal a stunning alpine meadow, backed by jagged peaks catching the last golden light of day. It was breathtaking and completely deserted. Ranger Donovan had mentioned no one else would be here, which seemed both a blessing and, increasingly, a concern. As I parked and began setting up my sleeping area in the back of my vehicle, I noticed fresh tire tracks leading beyond my sight, disappearing into a dense stand of lodgepole pines. Strange, since Donovan had claimed no other visitors were permitted here. I shrugged it off, probably maintenance vehicles. The isolation I'd sought suddenly felt oppressive rather than peaceful. I tried my phone again. No service. My satellite messenger device showed full battery but couldn't connect to establish my location. Technology failing in the wilderness wasn't unusual, but all at once, something felt off. The sun disappeared quickly behind the mountains, and the temperature plummeted faster than I'd expected. I fired up my portable stove to heat some soup, the small flame providing minimal comfort against the gathering darkness. Wind whispered through the trees, carrying sounds I couldn't identify, rustling, creaking, and once, what sounded like metal scraping against metal. Wildlife, I told myself. Mountain lions rarely attack humans. Bears should be foraging lower in the valley this time of year. These rational thoughts did little to soothe my growing unease. Just as I was preparing to lock myself in for the night, headlights swept across my campsite. A green Park Service truck pulled alongside my 4Runner, and Ranger Donovan stepped out, flashlight in hand. "Just checking in," he called, his voice unnaturally cheerful for someone making an unexpected visit after dark. Wanted to make sure you found everything all right. I hadn't mentioned my plans to settle in tonight. I told him I might drive around first to find the perfect spot. So how did he know exactly where I was? And why did he have what looked like rope coiled over his shoulder? The ranger's unexpected visit left me with a knot in my stomach even after he departed. Donovan had asked oddly specific questions about my travel plans, who knew I was here, when I was expected back, whether I'd shared my location with anyone. Just standard safety protocol, he'd claimed with that same hollow smile. I'd lied, saying my girlfriend was tracking my location and expecting regular check-ins. In reality, my ex and I had split months ago, and I told only my parents about this trip, deliberately vague about my exact whereabouts to avoid their hovering concern. Sleep came in fitful bursts that night. Every crack of a branch or howl in the distance jolted me awake. Around 3 a.m., I could have sworn I heard an engine idling nearby, but when I peered through the condensation-covered windows, only darkness greeted me. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones along with a persistent sense of dread. The spectacular sunrise over the mountains should have lifted my spirits, but instead, it illuminated several disturbing details I'd missed in the previous evening's dimness. The tire tracks I'd noticed actually formed a perimeter around my campsite, as if someone had slowly circled my vehicle multiple times before I'd arrived. A small pile of cigarette butts sat about 30 yards from my 4Runner, not mine, as I don't smoke, and they looked fresh. Most troubling was the small marking scratched into the dirt near my driver's side door, a crude arrow pointing west, toward a barely visible trail leading into the forest. Had Ranger Donovan left these signs while I slept? Or was someone else watching me? I decided to relocate. This site no longer felt like the peaceful retreat I'd sought, and Donovan's directions had led me suspiciously far from any emergency services. I packed hastily, tossing gear haphazardly into the back of my vehicle. As I reached for my cooler, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The latch on my rear license plate was undone, the plate itself hanging by a single screw. Someone had deliberately tampered with it. I secured it quickly, hands trembling, and jumped into the driver's seat, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered but wouldn't catch. I tried again, pumping the gas pedal frantically despite knowing that's not how modern fuel injection works. Nothing. Popping the hood revealed the problem immediately. Several wires had been carefully disconnected from the battery. This wasn't animal damage or wear and tear. This was deliberate human sabotage. My heart hammered in my chest as I reconnected everything, constantly glancing over my shoulder at the surrounding forest. The trees suddenly seemed too dense, too perfect for concealing watching eyes. With the engine finally running, I navigated back down the rough fire road, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. About 2 miles from my campsite, I rounded a bend to find a fallen tree blocking the narrow path, a massive ponderosa pine that hadn't been there yesterday. As I approached slowly, the obvious hit me like a truck. The cut at the base was fresh, the wood still oozing sap. Someone had deliberately felled this tree to block my exit. There was no way around it. My only options were to turn back or abandon my vehicle and hike out. I reversed carefully, mind racing through scenarios. The main road was roughly 8 miles away, a challenging hike with full gear, but doable in a day. But leaving my vehicle meant abandoning my shelter and most of my supplies. Plus, whoever was doing this would have free access to everything I left behind. The alternative was returning to my original campsite and hoping for another visitor, or that Ranger Donovan would return with legitimate help rather than whatever he seemed to be planning. Neither option felt good, but I chose a third path. My 4Runner could handle moderate off-road conditions, and my map showed an old logging trail that might connect back to the main park roads several miles south. It would be rough going, but better than waiting passively for whatever was coming. I carefully maneuvered through dense underbrush, creating my own path parallel to the blocked road. The vehicle scraped against rocks and branches, each scratch on the paint representing another small victory toward escape. About 40 minutes into this desperate detour, my radio, which had been playing static since I'd arrived, suddenly cleared. Through bursts of interference, I heard what sounded like a Park Service transmission. Subject vehicle moving southwest from designated area, followed by a response too garbled to understand. My pulse skyrocketed. They were tracking me. Subject vehicle could only mean me. I killed the radio and pressed harder on the accelerator, no longer concerned about damage to my undercarriage. As I crested a small rise, I spotted something that made me slam on the brakes. A Park Service truck parked across the old logging trail ahead, and beside it, Ranger Donovan, rifle in hand. "Vehicle trouble?" Ranger Donovan called out, his voice carrying an edge of mock concern as he approached. I remained behind the wheel, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. He tapped on my window with the barrel of his rifle, not pointing it at me, but the threat was implicit. I lowered the window just an inch, enough to hear him, but maintain some barrier between us. "Seems you've gotten yourself lost," he said, that same unsettling smile spreading across his face. "Roads in this section aren't meant for civilian vehicles. You could damage the delicate ecosystem." I mumbled apologies about getting turned around, claiming I was just trying to find my way back to the main road. The lie sounded hollow even to my own ears. Donovan's eyes narrowed, skepticism evident in his expression. "Why don't you step out? I've got a map in my truck. We can figure out exactly where you went wrong." Every instinct screamed danger, but refusing would only escalate the situation. With trembling legs, I exited my vehicle, keeping the door open, keys still in the ignition. Donovan motioned toward his truck with the rifle, still casual, as if it were merely a walking stick. As we approached his vehicle, I noticed things that made my stomach churn. Dark stains on the truck bed that looked disturbingly like dried blood, heavy-duty zip ties hanging from the rearview mirror, and most alarmingly, a collection of what appeared to be driver's licenses tucked into the visor. I caught a glimpse of faces that weren't from around here, tourists like me, perhaps. Donovan saw me looking and smoothly adjusted his position to block my view. "Weather's turning," he remarked, gesturing toward gathering clouds. "You're lucky I found you. Storms up here can be deadly if you're unprepared." He opened his glove compartment, and instead of a map, removed a hypodermic needle, no longer bothering with pretense. "This will make things easier," he said matter-of-factly. The shift from unsettling ranger to open threat happened so quickly I froze momentarily, precious seconds lost to shock. Donovan lunged forward, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. I reacted instinctively, throwing my full weight backward, wrenching free of his grasp but stumbling against the truck. He advanced, needle raised, expression hardened into something barely human. I scrambled desperately around the hood of his truck, putting the vehicle between us. "People know where I am," I shouted, voice cracking with fear. Donovan laughed, a hollow sound that echoed among the trees. "No one knows you're here," he replied calmly. "Your permit says you're camping at Glacier Basin. That's where they'll look, eventually." He began circling the truck slowly, methodically, like a predator toying with wounded prey. "You wouldn't believe how many hikers and campers go missing in national parks every year. Wilderness is dangerous. Accidents happen." Pure adrenaline coursed through my veins as I feinted toward the passenger side, then sprinted back toward my forerunner. Donovan anticipated this, cutting toward me at an angle. I changed direction, plunging into the forest instead. The dense underbrush tore at my clothes and skin, but fear propelled me forward faster than I'd ever moved. Behind me, I heard Donovan's angry shouts, followed by the unmistakable sound of a rifle being chambered. The first shot cracked through the air seconds later, splintering bark from a tree just feet from my head. I ran without direction, knowing only that I needed distance between us. The terrain sloped sharply downward, leading me into a ravine filled with loose rocks that shifted treacherously underfoot. A small stream cut through the bottom, its banks muddy and slick. I followed it downstream, reasoning that water sources eventually lead to civilization, or at least to other campers who might help. The sound of rushing water would also mask my movements, while Donovan's heavy boots would announce his approach. Hours passed in a nightmarish blur of constant movement. Each time I paused to catch my breath, I heard disturbing sounds in the distance, breaking branches, occasional whistling, and twice more, the crack of rifle fire that seemed deliberately aimed to flush me out rather than hit me directly. Donovan was hurting me, I realized with horror. He wasn't just pursuing. He was steering my panicked flight in a specific direction. But toward what? My mind conjured images of traps, cliffs, or worse, accomplices waiting ahead. The realization came too late. As I rounded a bend in the stream, I found myself in a small clearing dominated by a dilapidated cabin I hadn't noticed on any park maps. The windows were boarded up, the door hanging askew on rusted hinges. What stopped me cold was the collection of vehicles partially hidden under camouflage tarps behind the structure. At least 3 SUVs and a sedan, all with out-of-state plates. My legs nearly gave out beneath me as comprehension dawned. I wasn't Donovan's first target. This was a hunting ground, and I'd been driven right to his lair. Before I could retreat back into the forest, a sharp pain exploded in my shoulder. Looking down in confusion, I saw a small dart protruding from my jacket. A tranquilizer, not a bullet. My vision immediately began to swim, the edges darkening alarmingly fast. Through increasingly blurry eyes, I saw not just Donovan emerging from the trees, but another figure alongside him, dressed in identical ranger clothing. "Told you this one would run south," Donovan said to his companion. "They always do when you block the main road." The last thing I registered before consciousness slipped away was the second ranger's response. "This one looks strong. Should fetch a good price across the border." I awoke to darkness and the nauseating smell of mildew and something coppery, blood. My head throbbed violently, and when I tried to move, I discovered my wrists and ankles were bound with what felt like zip ties, cutting painfully into my skin. The surface beneath me vibrated gently. I was in a moving vehicle. Fragments of conversation drifted from what must have been the front seat. "Auction starts tomorrow night. Border crossing at dawn. Special client requested unharmed merchandise." The clinical detachment in their voices chilled me more than outright threats would have. Forcing my eyes to adjust to the darkness, I made out the interior of what seemed to be a cargo van. 3 other shapes lay nearby. People, bound like me, though they weren't moving. Dead? Unconscious? I couldn't tell. Fighting panic, I worked on orienting myself. The van hit a pothole, sending pain shooting through my restrained limbs, but also causing something sharp to slide across the floor toward me. A broken piece of metal, perhaps from the vehicle's interior paneling. Hope flickered dimly as I maneuvered my bound hands toward it. Working the jagged edge against my restraints was agonizingly slow work. Each movement had to be calculated to avoid noise while applying enough pressure to saw through the thick plastic. My wrists became slick with blood as the zip ties cut deeper, but determination numbed the pain. One of the other captives stirred, letting out a muffled whimper. A young woman, I realized, perhaps in her 20s. Our eyes met in the darkness, mutual terror creating an instant bond. I nodded toward the metal shard, then to her restraints, silently communicating my plan. Just as the zip tie around my wrist snapped, the van slowed. Voices outside indicated we were approaching some kind of checkpoint. I quickly pressed the metal shard into the young woman's hands and whispered urgent instructions to free herself and then the others if possible. Time was running out. The van came to a complete stop, and I heard footsteps approaching the rear doors. In seconds, they would discover I had freed myself. I needed a weapon, a distraction, anything. My fingers closed around the only thing available, the broken zip tie, its cut edge surprisingly sharp. The doors swung open, flooding the space with harsh light. Ranger Donovan stood there, now dressed in civilian clothes, a pistol held casually at his side. "Rest stop," he announced with sickening cheerfulness. "Anyone need to relieve themselves before?" I launched myself forward with every ounce of strength I could muster, driving the jagged plastic edge of the broken zip tied directly into his throat. Blood sprayed in a horrifying arc as Donovan stumbled backward, dropping his weapon as his hands flew to his neck. I scrambled after him, grabbing the fallen pistol and swinging it wildly toward the second man, the other ranger, who was reaching for his own weapon. I pulled the trigger without thinking, the sound deafening in the quiet mountain night. The shot went wide, but the second kidnapper dove for cover, giving me precious seconds. I turned back to the van, shouting for the others to run. The young woman had freed herself and was working on another captive's restraints, an older man who seemed barely conscious. The third figure hadn't moved at all. No time to check if they were still alive. "Go," I screamed at the woman. "Head for the trees and don't stop." She hesitated only briefly before half-dragging the older man toward the forest edge visible beyond the small clearing where we'd stopped. The second kidnapper reappeared from behind a boulder, firing wildly in my direction. Bullets pinged off the van's metal frame as I ducked and returned fire, having no idea if I was aiming properly in the chaos. One shot must have found its mark. He cried out and dropped to one knee. I didn't wait to see if he would stay down. Donovan lay motionless on the ground, the front of his shirt soaked with blood, but I gave him wide berth as I sprinted after the escaped captives, still clutching the pistol that now felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hand. The forest swallowed us, darkness providing cover as we crashed through underbrush. I caught up to the young woman. She introduced herself as Layla between gasping breaths, and helped support the older man, who mumbled incoherently about being taken while photographing wildlife 3 days earlier. We pushed our bodies well beyond exhaustion, knowing pursuit could begin any moment. After what felt like hours, but was likely only 40 minutes, we reached a steep ridge overlooking what appeared to be a highway in the far distance. Lights from occasional passing vehicles gleamed like beacons of safety. Our momentary relief evaporated at the sound of engines approaching from behind. Not just one vehicle, but several, their headlights cutting through the trees. The kidnappers had backup. Of course they did. An operation this sophisticated wouldn't rely on just 2 men. Layla sobbed quietly, her initial courage flagging as physical exhaustion set in. The older man, Dale, had become more lucid but could barely stand. We had perhaps a 5-minute head start, but we'd leave an obvious trail, and in our condition, we couldn't outrun vehicles or fresh pursuers. I made a desperate decision. Listen carefully, I whispered, leading them to a densely overgrown ravine. Follow this drainage downhill. It eventually reaches that highway. I'm going to create a diversion. Make them think we went north instead. Layla began to protest, but I pressed the pistol into her hands. 3 bullets left. Use them only if you have absolutely no choice. Before either could argue further, I took off in the opposite direction, deliberately making as much noise as possible, snapping branches and disturbing rocks that clattered loudly down the hillside. For 20 excruciating minutes, I led a false trail, heart threatening to burst from my chest with each step. When I heard vehicles stopping and voices shouting orders to fan out and search, I knew my diversion was working. I ducked into a hollow beneath a fallen tree, just as flashlight beams began sweeping the forest floor. 6 men moved past my hiding spot, all armed, all focused on the obvious trail I'd left. I held my breath until they disappeared into the darkness, then began inching in a wide arc that would eventually reconnect me with the drainage path I'd sent Layla and Dale down. Dawn was breaking by the time I reached the highway, my body pushed well beyond any rational limit. No sign of Layla or Dale. Either they'd found help or I couldn't bear to consider the alternative. A logging truck approached, and in a last desperate act, I stumbled directly into the road, forcing the driver to slam on his brakes. The weathered face of an older man gaped at me through the windshield, taking in my blood-streaked appearance and wild eyes. "Jesus Christ, son, what happened to you?" he called, already reaching for his phone. As I collapsed against the warm hood of his truck, sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had made it. Someone had called for help. We might actually survive this nightmare. The hospital lights seemed unnaturally bright after days in the forest. I lay in the sterile bed, answering an endless stream of questions from local police, state troopers, and eventually, FBI agents. They'd found Dale wandering along the highway about a mile from where I'd been picked up, confused but alive. Layla had made it to a gas station and called 911, her quick thinking bringing the cavalry just in time. The agents showed me photos of the cabin, now a bustling crime scene. 8 vehicles recovered, evidence of at least 12 previous victims over what appeared to be a 3-year operation. "We've suspected something like this was happening," a grim-faced FBI agent named Keller explained. "People disappearing from national parks across 5 states, all fitting a similar profile: solo travelers, minimal connections, vehicles that could be easily resold." She paused, studying my reaction. What we couldn't figure out was how they were identifying and isolating targets so effectively. Now we know. The fake rangers had access to park service systems, visitor information, and the authority to direct unwitting victims to remote locations without raising suspicion. Recovery came in painful increments. Physical wounds healed faster than psychological ones. I jumped at unexpected noises, couldn't sleep in total darkness, and developed a panic response to the sight of anything resembling a park ranger uniform. Layla and I stayed in contact. our shared trauma creating a bond that helped us both process what had happened. Dale, unfortunately, suffered a stroke 2 weeks after his rescue, the stress and dehydration taking a final toll despite medical intervention. His family thanked us for giving them the chance to say goodbye, small comfort though it was. 6 weeks after my escape, I received a call from Agent Keller. They'd tracked down 3 members of the trafficking ring, including the second ranger I'd shot in the escape. Donovan, whose real name turned out to be Marcus Shelby, had indeed died from the wound I'd inflicted. His partner, however, survived and made a deal to testify against their associates. They were selling people, Keller said flatly. Labor trafficking mostly, some to private buyers with specific tastes. They targeted travelers because they're harder to trace. Families often assume their loved ones simply chose to disappear. The knowledge that we'd helped bring down part of this operation should have provided some closure, but instead, it planted a growing seed of paranoia. How many others like Shelby were out there, wearing uniforms of authority, preying on the isolated and vulnerable? The final blow came when a missing persons report crossed my news feed. Another solo camper vanished from a different section of the Rockies. Authorities claimed no connection to our case, but the similarities were too striking to ignore. Different park, different method perhaps, but the same predatory pattern. I testified at the trials of the 3 captured traffickers, facing them across the courtroom with a courage I didn't know I possessed. Layla sat beside me each day, her presence anchoring me when memories threatened to drag me under. The prosecuting attorney called us heroes. The judge commended our bravery. Neither understood that survival isn't heroism. It's animal instinct, the desperate clawing against extinction that lives in every creature's DNA. What haunted me most wasn't what had almost happened to us, but what had definitely happened to those we couldn't save. The third captive in that van, the one who never moved, was identified as Marina Volkova, a 28-year-old wildlife photographer from Minnesota. She died from a severe allergic reaction to the sedative they'd used, her body dumped in a remote ravine after we escaped. They found her 2 weeks later, identified her through dental records. At her memorial service, which I attended despite never having met her alive, her mother grabbed my hands and thanked me between sobs for being with her at the end. I couldn't bring myself to explain that I'd left her behind, that in my desperate bid for survival, I'd never even checked if she was breathing. Trauma therapists talk about post-traumatic growth, the ability to forge something meaningful from suffering. I try to find this silver lining, channeling my experience into advocacy for better safety measures in national parks and more thorough vetting of seasonal employees. I appeared on podcasts about survivor stories and consulted on a documentary exposing trafficking networks operating in America's wilderness areas. External validation came easily. Internal peace remained elusive. Every campfire smell, every glimpse of mountains on the horizon, every official-looking uniform triggered the taste of fear at the back of my throat. A year to the day after my abduction, I drove back to Rocky Mountain National Park, not to revisit the site of my trauma. That area remained closed as an active crime scene, but to reclaim something they'd stolen beyond my sense of safety, my love for wild places. I parked at a busy trailhead, surrounded by families and groups, the opposite of isolation. My therapist had advised against this trip, calling it premature exposure. Perhaps she was right. My hands trembled so badly I could barely shoulder my day pack, and every park employee I saw sent adrenaline flooding through my system. I made it exactly 1.2 miles up the trail before panic overwhelmed me. Crouching behind a boulder, gasping for air that wouldn't come, I realized some wounds might never fully heal. Recovery wasn't a destination, but a winding path with setbacks and false summits. As I stumbled back to my vehicle, now a different model, with extensive security modifications, a legitimate ranger approached to ask if I needed assistance. I nearly collapsed at the sight of her uniform before recognizing her concerned expression held none of Donovan's predatory calculation. "I'm okay," I lied reflexively. "Just turned my ankle a bit." That night, from the safety of a hotel room in Denver, windows locked, chair wedged under the doorknob despite the deadbolt, I made a promise to myself and to Marina Volkova, whose face I knew only from memorial photos. I would return to these mountains again and again, each time pushing a little further, staying a little longer, until the beauty of these wild places once again outweighed their capacity for horror. Not because I was brave, but because surrendering to fear meant Donovan won something more valuable than my life. He won my freedom, and that, I decided, was the one thing I would never allow anyone to take from me again. I'm Gideon Marwood, 34 years old, and I live in Pueblo, Colorado. Been cooped up in the city too long, staring at the same brick walls and hearing the same traffic hum. So, I figured it's time to break loose, hit the road in my old Ford Bronco, and camp out in Durango. The San Juan National Forest out there's got this wild edge. Pine trees thick as thieves, trails that twist into nowhere. Perfect spot to clear my head. I've got my gear packed, cooler full of beer, sleeping bag, lantern, the works. My buddy Cash is coming along too. She's 29, lives down in Alamosa, and she's the type who'd rather wrestle a bear than sit still. We've been planning this for weeks, texting about how we're gonna roast marshmallows and dodge mosquitoes. Driving into Durango that Friday afternoon, the mountains loom up like they're sizing us up. The air's crisp, smells like pine and dirt, and I can already feel the city peeling off me. Cash is riding shotgun, fiddling with the radio, landing on some staticky country station. She's got this wild hair, dyed purple at the ends, and a grin that says she's up for anything. We're aiming for a spot off Molas Pass, a little pullout where you can park and sleep in the Bronco. No fancy campground, just us and the woods. I've done it before, solo, and it's always been peaceful. Something about the quiet out here resets me. The sun's dipping low as we roll up to the spot. It's a gravel patch off the highway, tucked between trees, with a killer view of the peaks. I kill the engine, and we hop out to stretch. Cash is already snapping pics with her phone, yammering about how she's gonna frame one for her desk. Me, I'm just soaking it in. The way the light's fading, the chill creeping up. There's a park ranger station a few miles back, one of those squat cabins with a radio tower. Figured it's good to know it's there, just in case. Never needed it before, but you never know. We crack open a couple beers and lean against the Bronco, watching the sky turn orange. Cash is laughing about some dumb story from work. She's a bartender, got a million of them, and I'm half listening, half watching the tree line. It's funny how the woods feel alive at dusk, like they're waking up while we're winding down. I toss my empty can in the back and start setting up. Sleeping in the Bronco's tight, but we've got the rear seats down, blankets spread out. It's cozy enough, and I like the idea of being locked in, safe from whatever's out there. Cash is still chattering as we climb inside, locking the doors. She's got this habit of overanalyzing everything. Says it's from dealing with drunk customers. "You think bears sniff around here?" she asks, peering out the window. I shrug, tell her they're probably more scared of us than we are of them. Famous last words, right? The lantern's casting a soft glow, and I'm feeling pretty damn good about this trip. We're out here, middle of nowhere, just the two of us in the night. The stars are popping out now, sharp against the black. I'm lying there, hands behind my head, thinking how this is exactly what I needed. Cash is quieted down, scrolling her phone till the signal drops. "No bars," she mutters, tossing it aside. I smirk, told her we'd be off the grid. The Bronco's our little fortress, parked on this lonely stretch, and I'm drifting off to the hum of crickets. It's perfect, almost too perfect. Outside, the wind picks up, rustling the trees. It's a low whine, nothing crazy, but it's got this edge to it. I don't think much of it. Mountain weather's weird. Cash is already snoring, curled up in her blanket. I close my eyes, letting the tiredness sink in. Been a long week, and this is my reward. I wake up once, middle of the night, needing to piss. The clock on my phone says 2:17 a.m. I squint out the window, moon's high, casting everything in this pale, creepy light. The woods look different now, sharper somehow. I shake it off, too lazy to climb out, and roll over. Should have gone, but I'm not about to stumble around in the dark. Back asleep in no time, I don't hear the wind die down. Don't hear much of anything, really. Not yet. Morning hits me like a slap. Cold air seeping through the Bronco's cracked window. I'm stiff as hell, sprawled across the back, and Cash is already up, banging around with the cooler. "Coffee's non-negotiable," she grumbles, digging out a propane stove. I groan, rubbing my eyes, and haul myself upright. The sun's barely over the ridge, and the forest got this misty, horror movie feel to it. Durango's wild in the daylight too, all jagged shadows and damp earth. My bladder's screaming from last night, so I stumble out, boots crunching gravel, and head for the trees. Pissing in the woods always feels primal, but something's off today. The air's too still, no birds, no rustling, just quiet. I zip up, shaking off that creepy vibe, and trudge back. Kasha's got the stove going, smirking at me. "You look like death warmed over," she says. I flip her off, grab a mug, and we sip coffee in silence, leaning against the Bronco. It's good, but that weird stillness is nagging at me. "You hear anything last night?" I ask. She shakes her head, too busy slurping. We decide to hike up to Mollis Lake. Couple miles, nothing brutal. I'm thinking fresh air'll shake this unease. We pack light. Water, snacks, my pocket knife. Kasha's got her phone, even though it's useless out here. The trail's steep, winding through pines, and we're huffing within 10 minutes. She's ahead, calling me slowpoke when I spot something. A busted sign half buried in dirt. Trail closed. It says, faded and splintered. Probably old. I mutter, catching up. She nods, but her eyes linger on it. Halfway up, the tire tracks catch my eye. Fresh ones, pressed into the mud off the path. Not ours. The Bronco's parked miles back. ATV maybe. Kasha guesses. I shrug, but it's weird. Rangers don't usually ride this high. We keep going, and that's when the smell hits. Rotten, faint, like something died nearby. "Jesus," Kasha says, covering her nose. I scan the trees, expecting a deer carcass, but there's nothing. Just that stench, hanging there. The lake's gorgeous when we reach it. Clear water, mountains mirrored on the surface. We plop down on a rock, catching our breath. I'm chugging water, trying to ignore that smell still clinging to my nose, when Kasha nudges me. "Check that out," she whispers. Across the lake, there's a figure, too far to make out, just standing there. Ranger maybe? I squint, but the sun's glaring off the water. Then it's gone, like it ducked behind a tree. Probably scoping us out, I say, brushing it off. She doesn't look convinced. Hiking back, we're quieter. The woods feel tighter now, branches clawing at the trail. My knee's acting up, old injury from a roofing job, so I'm lagging. Kasha's ahead again, and I'm cursing myself for not stretching when I hear it. A snap, sharp and close. I freeze, scanning the trees. Nothing. "You good?" she calls back. "Yeah." I lie, hobbling to catch up. That snap's echoing in my head, though too deliberate for a twig underfoot. Back at the Bronco, it's late afternoon. We're beat, sprawled in the gravel, munching granola bars. I'm fiddling with the radio, still static, when Kasha goes stiff. "Gideon, look." She points to the passenger window. There's a smudge on the glass, big and greasy, like a handprint. Not ours. We locked it last night. "Kids messing around?" I say, but my gut's twisting. She stares at it, then at me. "Out here." I grab a rag, wipe it off, trying to play it cool. "Let's just chill tonight," I decide. No more hikes, my knees toast anyway. We cook hot dogs on the stove, but the vibe's off. That handprint's got us both jumpy, and the woods are starting to feel less like a getaway and more like a trap. Kasha's poking the fire, quieter than usual, and I'm pretending I'm not watching the trailing. Dusk settles in, and we're back in the Bronco, doors locked. I'm sipping a beer, telling myself it's nothing. Handprints happen, trails get weird. But then Kasha grabs my arm, eyes wide. "You see that?" she hisses, pointing out the windshield. I look, and my stomach drops. Something's moving out there, low and slow, cutting through the dark. I'm frozen, staring out the Bronco's windshield, heart slamming in my chest. Whatever's out there, crouched, slinking through the dark, isn't right. It's too big for a coyote, too low for a bear. Kasha's gripping my arm so tight it hurts, her breath shallow. "What the hell is that?" she whispers. I don't answer, can't. The shape pauses, maybe 20 yards off, just beyond the lantern's glow. For a second, I swear it turns toward us, and I feel this cold, horror movie dread crawl up my spine. Then it darts into the trees, gone. Kasha's shaking, fumbling for her phone like it's gonna save us. "No signal," she mutters, voice cracking. I'm trying to keep it together, telling her it's probably just a deer, but we both know I'm full of it. That thing moved wrong, deliberate, like it was stalking. I crank the Bronco's engine, just for the noise, and flick on the high beams. The light cuts through the pines, but there's nothing. Just shadows and that creepy quiet again, pressing in. We sit there, engine idling, doors locked. I'm clutching the steering wheel, scanning the dark, while Cash is curled up, eyes glued to the side window. Maybe it was a ranger, she says, half-hearted. I snort. Rangers don't creep like that. My mind's racing, replaying that shape, the way it moved. Reminds me of this documentary I saw about mountain lions stalking prey, silent, calculating. Except this didn't feel like an animal. It felt personal. I kill the engine to save gas, and the silence is deafening. Cash is chewing her lip, something she does when she's freaked. We should have stayed in a campground, she mutters. I don't argue, starting to think she's right. I dig out my pocket knife, set it on the dash. It's pathetic against whatever's out there, but it's something. The lantern's still on, casting our shadows huge against the Bronco's walls, making every flicker feel like a threat. An hour drags by, maybe two. We're barely talking, just listening. Then it comes, a low, scraping sound, metal on metal, right outside the driver's side. My stomach lurches. Kasha gasps, scooting back. I grab the knife, hands sweaty, and lean toward the window. Nothing's there, but the sound's real, like someone's dragging a blade along the Bronco. It stops as quick as it started, leaving us in that suffocating quiet again. I'm about to say something, anything, when Kasha points, voice barely a whisper. Gideon, the ranger station. I follow her finger. Down the road, maybe a half-mile, there's a light flickering through the trees. The ranger cabin. It's faint, like a flashlight bobbing, but it's there. Someone's out there, I say, trying to sound calm. Could be help, or something worse. My gut's screaming it's not a ranger, not after that scraping. We gotta do something, Kasha says, her voice shaky but firm. She's right. Sitting here's like waiting to die. I'm thinking drive to the station, bang on the door, pray someone's there. But leaving the Bronco feels like stepping into a horror flick where the idiot dies first. I glance at the keys, then the tree-ling. That light's still moving, closer now, and it's got this weird rhythm, like someone's pacing. I start the engine again, low rumble filling the air. We're not staying. I decide, voice tighter than I'd like. Kasha nods, but her eyes are locked on that light. I'm about to shift into gear when something thuds against the back of the Bronco, hard, like a body slamming into it. We both yell, and I hit the gas, tires spinning gravel, lurching us forward a few feet before I slam the brakes. I whip around, expecting, hell, I don't know what. The back window's clear, no cracks, no marks. But that thud was real, and now the air feels thick, like something's watching, waiting. Cash is crying now, quiet sobs, and I'm gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ache. The light from the ranger station's gone dark, and the forest swallowing us whole. I'm flooring the gas, the Bronco's tires spitting gravel as we peel out of that cursed pullout. Cash is gripping the door, still crying, and I'm yelling over the engine, hold on. The headlights bounce wild across the trees, lighting up nothing but shadows that feel alive. Whatever slammed the back, whatever's been screwing with us, it's out there, and I'm not waiting to find out what it wants. My hands are shaking on the wheel, but I keep it steady, aiming for the ranger station down the road. That's our shot. The highway's a blur, twists and turns I barely register. Cash is muttering, faster, Gideon, faster, like I'm not already pushing this old heap to its limit. The rear view's pitch black, no lights, no movement, but I feel it, this weight, like something's chasing us. A mile in, the Bronco lurches, tires blown, shredded on some jagged rock I didn't see. I curse, wrestling the wheel as we skid, scraping the guardrail before I grind us to a stop. Shit, 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 I'm saying over and over. We're stranded, engine ticking, middle of nowhere. Cash is wide-eyed, scanning the dark. We can't stay here, she says, voice raw. She's right, sitting ducks don't last in horror stories. The ranger station's close, maybe a quarter mile if we cut through the woods. I grab the knife, she grabs the lantern, and we bolt, leaving the Bronco behind. The forest's a nightmare, branches snagging my jacket, roots tripping me up, my knees screaming, but adrenaline's got me moving. Halfway there, Kasha stops dead, lantern trembling in her hand. You hear that? She whispers. I do, a low, guttural hum, like a growl stretched thin, coming from behind us. I spin, knife out, but the light's too weak to show anything. The sound's closer, circling, and my gut's telling me we're prey. Run, I hiss, shoving her forward. We're crashing through brush now, breath ragged. The station's outline just visible through the trees. Bursting into the clearing, I see it. The ranger cabin, dark and squat. No lights, no life. I pound the door anyway, yelling, "Hey, anyone?" Nothing. Cash is beside me, swinging the lantern like a weapon. That hums louder, splitting into echoes, and I realize it's not one thing. It's more. Shapes peel from the trees, tall and wrong, moving jerky like puppets. I kick the door, once, twice. It splinters open, and we stumble inside, slamming it shut. The cabin's a mess, desk overturned, papers everywhere, radio smashed. No ranger, no help. Cash is barricading the door with a chair, and I'm grabbing anything. A rusted axe from the wall. Something slams the door, hard enough to crack the frame. I swing the axe at the air, yelling, "Back off." It stops, but the humming's deafening now, vibrating through the walls. Cash is sobbing. What are they? I don't know, don't want to. A window shatters behind us, glass spraying. I whirl, axe up, and see it. Pale, two long limbs, eyes like pits, clawing through. I swing, connect with a sickening crunch, and it reels back, shrieking. Cash is screaming, shoving me toward a back door. We run, bursting into the night, the hum chasing us. There's a ranger truck parked out back, keys dangling in the ignition. Thank God. I dive in, crank it, and peel out, tires screaming on dirt. The shapes lunge from the woods, fast, but the truck's faster. I'm weaving down a service road, trees blurring past, Kasha clinging to the seat. They're in the rear view, loping, relentless, but the distance grows. My heart's pounding so hard I can't think straight. The road spits us onto the highway, and I don't stop. Not till Durango's lights glow ahead, civilization swallowing us back. We're alive, panting in the truck, pulled over at a gas station. Cash is shaking, I'm shaking, and the axe is still clutched in my lap. We made it, barely. But those things, they're still out there. Morning breaks over Durango, gray and cold. We're holed up in a diner, coffee cups trembling in our hands. Cash is staring out the window, purple hair a mess, and I'm picking at a plate of eggs I can't eat. We told the cops everything. Bronco, cabin, those things. They found my truck, tire blown, but the ranger station? Vandalized, they said. No bodies, no tracks, just our word. They're calling it a bear attack gone wrong. I don't argue. Sounds saner than the truth. I keep replaying it, though. That hum, those shapes. My head's a mess, piecing together every dumb choice. Should have stayed in Pueblo, never dragged Kasha out here. She's not talking much, just sipping coffee. But I see it in her eyes, same horror I feel. We're marked now, like we saw something we weren't meant to. I dig out my phone, search San Juan disappearances. Too many hits. Hikers, campers, gone without a trace. Makes me sick. Back at the motel, Kasha crashes, out cold on one bed. I'm pacing, axe still close. Can't shake this feeling we're not done. Midday, a ranger rolls up, stocky guy, badge says Perez. He's asking questions, real casual, but his eyes are sharp. You sure it wasn't kids messing with you? He says. I nod, lying through my teeth. He lingers, then drops it. Folks go missing out there sometimes. Stay safe. He leaves, and I'm wondering if he knows more than he's letting on. Night falls, and I'm dumb enough to think we're clear. Cash is stirring, says she's starving, so we hit the diner again. It's late, empty, just us and a bored waitress. I'm mid-bite when the power flickers. Kasha freezes, fork clattering. That hum, it's back, faint, seeping through the walls. My stomach drops. No way. I whisper, but she's already grabbing my arm, dragging me up. We're out the door, truck keys in hand. When I see them, shapes in the parking lot, same jerky gait. They followed us. I shove Kasha toward the truck, but she trips, ankle twisting bad. I haul her up, half carrying her, and we're almost there when one lunges, fast, claw slashing my arm. I swing the axe one-handed, miss, and it's on me, weight crushing. Kasha's screaming, kicking it off, and we scramble in, doors locked. I'm bleeding, arm shredded, but I hit the gas, tires squealing. They're everywhere now, swarming the lot, eyes glinting. I plow through, clipping one, and we're on the highway, speeding out of Durango. Cash is tying her shirt around my arm, sobbing, "We're dead, Gideon." I don't answer, can't. Blood soaking the seat, vision blurring. We make it to Cortez, Hospital lights blazing. Doc stitch me up, ask questions I dodge. Kash's ankle sprained, but she's alive. Cops again, more lies. They tow the Ranger truck, stolen, they say. Perez shows up, staring too long, then leaves without a word. I'm discharged, arm bandaged, and we're on a bus back to Pueblo, silent. Back home, I'm a wreck, nightmares, jumping at shadows. Kasha calls once, says she's moving, can't stay in Colorado. I get it. That trip was my mistake, thinking the woods were safe, dragging her into hell. People ask why I don't camp anymore. I laugh it off, but the truth's in my scars. In that hum I still hear some nights. They're still out there, waiting. And I know, deep down, they're not done with me. My name is Valerie Winters, 29 years old, and I've been living in Minneapolis for the past 4 years working as a software developer. The endless hours of coding had begun to blur together into one continuous stream of fluorescent lighting and takeout containers. When my boss finally forced me to use my accumulated vacation time, I decided I needed something drastically different from my climate-controlled existence. That's how I found myself researching fire lookout towers in Colorado that could be rented during the off-season. The perfect blend of isolation and purpose that appealed to my introverted nature. Pike National Forest became my destination of choice, specifically the Thorodan Mountain Lookout Tower situated about 2 hours west of Denver. The listing described it as primitive accommodations with unparalleled panoramic views, which sounded exactly like the mental reset I needed. My college roommate Eliza thought I was insane to vacation alone in what she called serial killer territory, but her concerns only strengthened my resolve. I'd spent my entire life playing it safe. This was my chance to prove I could handle true solitude. The rental process required submitting an application months in advance, detailing my outdoor experience and emergency preparedness. I may have exaggerated slightly about my wilderness skills, but I completed a first aid course and downloaded several survival apps to my phone. Besides, the tower wasn't truly remote. The nearest town, Bailey, was only a 40-minute drive away. The Forest Service approval came with a detailed PDF of instructions and warnings. Bring extra water, prepare for sudden weather changes, and notify someone of your itinerary. I dutifully forwarded everything to my sister Nora, who promised to call for help if she didn't hear from me every 48 hours. I rented a sturdy Jeep Wrangler for the journey, loading it with probably twice as many supplies as I needed for a 5-day stay. The drive from Denver International Airport into the mountains was stunning, autumn colors painting the landscape in fiery oranges and yellows against the backdrop of snow-dusted peaks. My excitement grew with each mile marker, the concrete jungle of my normal life fading with every switchback climb. At the ranger station in Bailey, I checked in with a weathered woman named Gloria who provided the key to the access gate and a hand-drawn map showing the final 7 miles of unpaved Forest Service road. Last visitor we had up there was 3 weeks ago. Gloria mentioned casually as she checked my ID. Radio's been acting up lately, so don't count on it in an emergency. Cell service is spotty at best. She studied me with surprising intensity before adding, "You sure you want to go up alone? We've had mountain lion sightings in that area recently." I assured her I'd be careful, though her concern planted the first seed of doubt in my mind. Still, I wasn't about to turn back after months of planning and anticipation. The Forest Service road proved more challenging than I'd anticipated, narrow with sharp drop-offs that had me white-knuckling the steering wheel. My city driving skills were barely adequate for navigating the rutted path that seemed to worsen with each mile. About halfway to the tower, I encountered a fallen tree branch partially blocking the road. As I carefully maneuvered around it, I noticed something odd, fresh-cut marks at its base. It almost looked deliberately placed. I dismissed the thought. Forest management crews were probably doing routine maintenance. The lookout tower finally came into view just as the afternoon light began to soften. A stark silhouette against the dimming sky, perched on stilts that made it look like some alien structure straight out of a science fiction film. 40 metal stairs led to a small cabin crowned with windows on all sides, offering the 360-degree visibility needed for spotting wildfires across the vast landscape. I parked, stretched my cramped legs, and began the process of carrying my excessive supplies up to what would be my home for the next 5 days. By the time I finished, sweat had soaked through my flannel despite the cool mountain air. Inside, the tower was spare but functional. A small propane stove, a desk with the old radio equipment, maps of the surrounding area pinned to the walls, and a narrow cot that looked far less comfortable than the pictures online had suggested. The centerpiece was the Osborne Fire Finder, a circular mapping device used to pinpoint the location of smoke or fires spotted from the tower. As I explored the single room, I noticed initials and dates carved into the wooden support beams, generations of lookouts leaving their mark. In the visitor log, the most recent entry was dated 3 weeks earlier as Gloria had mentioned, but something about the handwriting seemed off, almost childlike in its formation. The entry simply read, "They are watching." My first night in the tower was both magical and unnerving. The sunset transformed the sky into a canvas of impossible colors, followed by a display of stars so brilliant it almost hurt to look at them. I'd never seen the Milky Way so clearly defined, stretching across the black expanse like spilled diamond dust. Yet despite this beauty, sleep proved elusive. The tower creaked and shifted with every gust of wind, metal groaning against wood in a symphony of unfamiliar sounds. Around midnight, I heard what sounded like footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate creaks ascending toward my door, but when I gathered the courage to check with my flashlight, nothing was there. Just the wind, I told myself, though the air had gone unnaturally still. Morning brought renewed confidence along with warm sunshine streaming through the windows. I explored the small observation deck that wrapped around the tower, savoring my coffee while scanning the vast forest below with the binoculars I'd brought. Movement caught my eye about half a mile away, a figure moving between trees. A hiker, perhaps? The tower wasn't on any major trails, but enthusiastic backpackers sometimes ventured into these remote areas. I adjusted the focus but lost sight of whatever I'd seen. The forest had swallowed it whole. I spent most of that day settling in, organizing my supplies and familiarizing myself with the tower's peculiarities. The propane stove required a finicky lighting sequence. The water pump outside needed several minutes of priming before it would produce anything, and the composting toilet situated in a tiny closet-like space smelled faintly of chemicals no matter how carefully I followed the instructions. Most concerning was the radio. As Gloria had warned, it produced only static when I attempted to run the scheduled check-in. I made a note to try again later, not particularly worried since my cell phone showed one wavering bar of service when held at precisely the right angle near the east-facing window. That afternoon, while sketching the landscape in a notebook I'd brought, I noticed smoke, just a thin column rising from within the forest where I'd seen movement earlier. Not a wildfire, but a campfire perhaps. Despite the isolation, I found myself oddly comforted by the evidence of another human presence relatively nearby. I marked the location on my map, more out of habit than any real concern. The weather report I'd downloaded before losing reliable internet predicted clear conditions with no fire danger. Still, something about seeing that smoke made me double-check that the access hatch to the stairs was securely latched before darkness fell. My second night brought the dreams, vivid, unsettling visions of being watched through the tower's windows by countless eyes that retreated whenever I tried to focus on them. I woke repeatedly, heart pounding, convinced I'd heard whispering just beyond the glass. Each time, the surrounding forest revealed nothing but shadows and moonlight. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, along with a growing sense of unease I couldn't quite name. The logbook caught my attention during breakfast. Had it been moved? I could have sworn I'd left it closed on the desk, but now it lay open to that same unsettling entry. They are watching. I tried the radio again with no success, then attempted to call Nora using my single bar of service. The call connected briefly, long enough for me to hear her say my name before dissolving into static and disconnecting. I texted instead, a brief message explaining the radio issues but assuring her I was fine. The message showed as sent, though no confirmation arrived. Outside, low clouds had rolled in overnight, obscuring the valley below and transforming the landscape into an endless sea of gray. The smoke I'd observed yesterday was no longer visible, if it had ever been there at all. While refilling my water bottles at the pump, I discovered fresh mud tracks leading from the forest to the base of the tower stairs. boot prints too large to be mine, partially washed away by the morning dew, but unmistakably human. Had someone visited while I slept? I scanned the surrounding trees, but saw only the shifting patterns of mist moving through branches. A maintenance check perhaps, though Gloria hadn't mentioned anyone else working in the area. I took photos of the prints with my phone, though I wasn't sure why I felt the need to document them. The clouds thickened throughout the day, bringing with them an early twilight and plummeting temperatures. I found myself checking and rechecking the tower's door latch, peering down the spiral staircase into the gathering gloom below. My attention kept returning to the visitor logbook, which I now studied more carefully. Prior entries seemed normal enough. Brief comments about weather conditions, wildlife sightings, the occasional poetic reflection on the beauty of solitude. But looking more closely at the most recent entry, I noticed something I'd missed before. Tiny pinprick marks surrounding the words, as if someone had repeatedly jabbed a needle into the paper while writing. As darkness settled completely, the wind picked up dramatically, howling around the tower's exposed position with unexpected ferocity. The structure swayed noticeably, each gust producing creaks and groans that seemed almost vocal in their intensity. Between these sounds, during momentary lulls, I heard it, a clear, rhythmic tapping on one of the windows. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Not random, not branches or debris. Deliberate. I froze in place, flashlight clutched in suddenly sweaty hands, unable to turn toward the sound. When I finally forced myself to look, my beam illuminated only raindrops beginning to splatter against the glass. Yet the tapping continued at one specific window, perfectly timed between the chaotic patterns of the strengthening storm. The tapping continued well past midnight, always from different windows, as if whatever caused it was circling the tower. I huddled on the cot, flashlight aimed at each sound, revealing nothing but darkness and rain-streaked glass. Sleep came in microbursts, my body shutting down from exhaustion only to jolt awake minutes later when the tapping resumed. Around 3 a.m., a new sound joined the symphony of terror, scraping against the metal stairs, slow and methodical, like something heavy being dragged upward. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but the signal had vanished completely. Outside, the storm had intensified into something biblical, lightning illuminating the landscape in strobing flashes that transformed the familiar shapes of trees into grotesque, reaching figures. Morning brought no relief. The clouds hung oppressively low, turning what should have been dawn into a dismal gray twilight. My supplies had been disturbed overnight, not obviously ransacked, but subtly rearranged. The protein bars I'd carefully stacked were now scattered across the small counter, and my water bottles had been emptied, their caps neatly replaced. Most disturbing was my journal, now open to a blank page with a single word written in handwriting not my own: leave. I frantically checked the door latch, still secured from the inside. The windows were all intact. There was no way someone could have entered without me knowing, yet the evidence suggested otherwise. I decided to abandon the remainder of my stay. 5 days of isolation had suddenly transformed from dream vacation to nightmare scenario. I packed quickly, tossing items haphazardly into my bags, constantly glancing over my shoulder at each creak or groan from the wind-battered tower. The visitor logbook caught my eye one final time, now open to a new page where yesterday's date had been inscribed alongside a crude drawing of the tower with stick figures surrounding its base, their arms raised toward the structure in a posture that could have been supplication or threat. The descent down the metal staircase felt interminable, each step producing an echoing clang that announced my movement to anything listening in the surrounding forest. Halfway down, I froze at the sight below. My Jeep's tires were completely flat, all four slashed with precise, vertical cuts. As I processed this new horror, movement in my peripheral vision drew my attention to the tree-line. A figure stood motionless among the pines, too distant to discern features, but unmistakably watching. When lightning flashed again, illuminating the landscape, the figure was gone. Not running away, not hiding behind a tree, simply gone, as if it had never existed. Rain pelted my face as I reached the ground, my legs nearly buckling from the combination of fear and the sudden transition to solid earth after days in the swaying tower. I dropped my heaviest bag and circled the Jeep, confirming what I already knew. I wasn't driving anywhere with these tires. The vehicle itself had been otherwise untouched, my emergency kit still in the back, road flares and first aid supplies intact. I grabbed these essentials along with my backpack containing food, water, and extra clothing. The Forest Service road that had seemed merely challenging on the drive up now represented my only escape route, 7 miles of muddy track between me and civilization. The rain had transformed the road into a slippery nightmare of red clay and exposed roots. I trudged forward, constantly checking behind me, the weight of my backpack growing heavier with each squelching step. After what my watch indicated was only 2 miles, though it felt like 20, I encountered the fallen tree branch I'd navigated around during my arrival. Except now it wasn't just a branch. An entire tree had been felled across the road, its massive trunk impossible to climb over with my gear. The cut at its base was fresh, chainsaw marks clearly visible in the pale wood. This was no accident of nature. Someone had deliberately blocked the road after my arrival. Standing before this insurmountable barrier, I faced an impossible choice. Return to the tower where I at least had shelter, attempt to bushwhack through dense forest alongside the road, or try to climb the steep embankment that flanked the opposite side, potentially finding another service road or trail. The decision was made for me when I heard it, the distinctive sound of a chainsaw starting up somewhere behind me, back in the direction of the tower. The mechanical roar echoed through the trees, impossibly loud against the constant patter of rain. Someone was coming. I scrambled up the embankment, using exposed roots as handholds, my boots slipping on wet pine needles and moss. The hillside was steeper than it had appeared from below, nearly vertical in sections, forcing me to move diagonally rather than straight up. The chainsaw sound grew louder, then abruptly cut off, replaced by something worse. Voices, multiple speakers conversing in tones too distant to understand, but clearly human. They were searching for me. Through gaps in the foliage, I caught glimpses of movement on the road below. At least 3 figures carrying tools that could have been forestry equipment or weapons. I couldn't risk a closer look. Near the crest of the hill, I discovered a game trail cutting horizontally across the slope, not much wider than my boots, but blessedly easier than the vertical climb. I followed it westward, hoping it might eventually loop back to a main trail or another service road. The rain had softened to a miserable drizzle, but my clothes were already soaked through, adding weight and stealing body heat with every gust of wind. After nearly an hour of careful navigation along the narrow path, the trail widened suddenly, opening onto a small clearing dominated by a structure that stopped me cold. A crude altar constructed of stacked stones, surrounded by dozens of small animal skulls arranged in concentric circles. Fresh blood darkened the central stone, not yet fully washed away by the rain. Feathers and bits of fur stuck to the surrounding rocks, evidence of recent sacrifices. But most disturbing were the photographs pinned to nearby trees. Images of the fire tower taken from various angles and distances. In several, I could clearly see myself through the windows, unaware I was being photographed. Some showed me sleeping. Others captured me changing clothes. The most recent appeared to be from just this morning as I packed to leave, my panicked expression clearly visible. Beneath each photo, the same phrase had been written in what looked disturbingly like dried blood. The Watcher returns. As I backed away from this nightmarish shrine, a piercing whistle cut through the forest, a signal immediately answered by similar whistles from multiple directions. They had found me, or at least discovered where I'd left the road. I plunged deeper into the forest, abandoning any pretense of following a path, driven purely by animal instinct to put distance between myself and these hunters. The terrain became increasingly rugged, massive boulders and fallen trees creating a natural obstacle course that both hindered my escape and provided momentary hiding places when the whistles grew too close. Night began to fall far too quickly, the perpetual cloud cover accelerating the transition from gray day to impenetrable darkness. My flashlight, which had seemed so powerful in the confines of the tower, now produced only a feeble glow that barely illuminated the ground at my feet. Every shadow concealed potential threats. Every sound represented possible pursuit. When my foot caught on an exposed root, sending me tumbling down a short but steep slope into a shallow ravine, the resulting noise seemed to echo for miles. I lay there, breath held, listening for any indication I'd been heard. The The forest had gone eerily silent, not even bird calls or insect sounds breaking the unnatural stillness. Then came the howling, not wolves or coyotes, but human voices mimicking wolves, the sound traveling from point to point around me, drawing closer with each call and response. The howling encircled me, a perverse call and response that made it impossible to determine how many hunters pursued me or which direction offered safety. I crawled beneath the hollow formed by a fallen tree, pulling dead branches and wet leaves over my body in a desperate attempt at camouflage. Through a small gap, my flashlight revealed boot prints in the mud mere feet from my hiding place. Massive prints with strange symbols carved into the soles, leaving distinctive marks with each step. I extinguished my light immediately, plunging myself into darkness so complete it felt solid against my skin. Footsteps approached slowly, deliberately testing the ground with each placement. A beam of light swept across my hiding place once, twice, lingering on the third pass as if sensing my presence. I held my breath until my lungs burned, willing my thundering heart to quiet. The light moved on, but the footsteps remained, now joined by a low humming sound, a melody I vaguely recognized but couldn't place, something folk-like and ancient. More footsteps arrived, and voices murmured in what might have been English, but with cadences and emphases that rendered it nearly unintelligible. I caught fragments, offering to the watcher, and cycle broken without sacrifice. And most chillingly, knows she's listening now. Hours passed in that hollow, my body alternating between trembling with cold and freezing in terror whenever sounds approached. Rain continued intermittently, soaking through my makeshift cover and rendering my clothes useless against the dropping temperature. Hypothermia became as immediate a threat as my pursuers. When the eastern sky finally began to lighten, not with proper dawn, but with the murky gray that was all this endless storm allowed, I risked emerging from my hiding place, limbs stiff and movements clumsy from cold and fear. The forest appeared empty, though fallen leaves and disturbed earth showed where multiple people had moved through the area overnight. I oriented myself using the dim light filtering through the clouds, determining I'd been moving roughly southeast, away from the tower, but also away from the main road out of the forest. My phone was dead, the battery drained by cold and constant searching for non-existent signal. The compass app I'd downloaded was useless now, forcing me to navigate by the limited directional clues available. Water flowed downhill, and downhill eventually meant civilization. I located a small stream and began following its course. The stream led to a larger creek, its banks muddy but navigable. As the water's volume increased, so did my hope of finding my way out of this nightmare. Small streams meant larger rivers, rivers meant towns, towns meant safety. I pushed forward despite exhaustion hollowing me from within, each step a negotiation with muscles threatening to quit entirely. Around midday, the creek bent sharply around a massive boulder formation, and there, like a mirage, stood a small wooden cabin half hidden among towering pines. Smoke curled from its chimney, suggesting occupation, but I hesitated. After what I'd seen at the altar, any human presence represented potential threat rather than salvation. Yet hypothermia would kill me as surely as any cultist if I remained in my wet clothes without warmth or food. I approached cautiously, circling to observe the cabin from all angles before committing. No vehicles were visible, no boot prints marked the damp earth around the structure. The windows glowed with warm light, and the front door stood slightly ajar, inviting or threatening. I couldn't decide which. "I know you're out there," a woman's voice called suddenly, startling me so badly I nearly fell. "Been watching you circle for 10 minutes. Come in or don't, but make up your mind. They'll be searching this area soon." She appeared in the doorway, elderly, perhaps 70, with steel gray hair cut severely short and eyes that missed nothing. She carried no visible weapon, but her posture suggested she didn't need one to be dangerous. "Gloria sent a radio warning yesterday when you didn't check in. Said you might be running from them. Well, are you coming in or not?" The cabin's interior was Spartan but blessedly warm, a wood stove radiating heat that immediately began the painful process of thawing my frozen extremities. The woman, who introduced herself only as Margaret, provided dry clothes, hot tea laced with whiskey, and minimal conversation while I changed and huddled near the fire. They've been operating up here for decades, she finally said, breaking the silence. Forest Service knows, but can't prove anything. Locals know to avoid certain areas during their hunting seasons. Outsiders like you are easier targets. As warmth returned to my body, so did questions. Who are they? What do they want? What's the watcher they kept mentioning? Margaret's expression darkened. She moved to a bookshelf and retrieved an old photograph, its edges yellowed with age. It showed the fire tower, but not as I'd seen it. This version was dilapidated, half its windows broken, clearly abandoned for years. That tower burned down in 1976, she said flatly. Official story was lightning strike. Truth is, they burned it with the lookout still inside after he saw something he shouldn't have. My mind reeled, unable to process this information. But I was just there. I slept in that tower for 2 nights. It's real. Margaret nodded slowly. Oh, they rebuilt it all right. Exact replica. But not for fire watching, for luring. Every few years they convince the rental service to list it, knowing it'll attract exactly the right type. Urban folks looking for wilderness experience, traveling alone, no real survival skills. People who won't be missed immediately. A terrible understanding began to dawn. The logbook entries, the one about they are watching. Warnings, Margaret confirmed. From the previous occupant. They don't always succeed in grabbing them right away. Sometimes people escape the initial trap, like you did. She checked her watch, then moved to secure the window shutters. We have maybe 2 hours before they expand their search this far. My truck's hidden about a quarter-mile away. If we leave at dusk, we might make it to the highway before they set up roadblocks. She paused, studying me. Unless you'd prefer to wait for official rescue. But I wouldn't count on that coming in time. They have people in every department for 50 miles. The decision was simple despite the terror of returning to the forest. Margaret clearly knew the area and these people's methods. She represented my best chance of survival. We spent the remaining daylight preparing. She provided proper hiking boots to replace my mud-ruined sneakers, a heavy jacket better suited to the conditions, and most importantly, a revolver which she insisted I take. Not for them, she clarified, checking that I knew how to operate it. For yourself, if it comes to that. What they do to their captives. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Dusk arrived with alarming speed, shadows lengthening across the cabin floor like reaching fingers. Margaret extinguished all lights and led me through a back door I hadn't noticed earlier, concealed behind a bookcase. Outside, the forest had transformed into a realm of deep blues and impenetrable blacks. We moved silently, Margaret setting a pace that suggested frequent practice at this particular form of escape. No flashlights, no speaking, just the soft crunch of careful footsteps and the occasional gesture indicating direction changes. We'd covered perhaps half a mile when the first howl rose behind us. That same human approximation of wolf calls I'd heard the previous night. Margaret froze, head tilted to analyze the sound. More howls answered from different directions, and her expression hardened. They've found the cabin. Move faster, stay close. Our careful pace became an urgent hustle, still silent, but sacrificing stealth for speed. The terrain sloped downward, becoming increasingly rocky, our path winding between boulders that loomed like sentinels in the gathering darkness. Margaret's truck, an ancient Ford with mismatched panels and no working interior lights, was exactly where she'd promised, concealed beneath a camouflage tarp in a natural depression between massive fallen trees. As she unlocked it, I scanned our surroundings, the weight of the revolver heavy in my jacket pocket. Something moved at the edge of my vision, a shadow detaching from deeper shadows, humanoid but wrong somehow, proportions slightly distorted. Before I could call out a warning, Margaret was beside me, hand clamped over my mouth, pulling me down behind the truck's hood. 3 figures crossed the small clearing ahead, moving with an unsettling synchronization that suggested long practice or shared purpose. They carried weapons, not hunting rifles as I'd expected, but what looked like ceremonial spears tipped with metal that caught the faint moonlight in sickly gleams. Around their necks hung what I first took for lanterns, but realized with rising horror were human skulls, modified to hold candles within the cranium, light spilling from my sockets and nasal cavities. They paused, heads turning in perfect unison toward our hiding place, though I was certain they couldn't see us in the deep shadow. The watcher guides us, one intoned, voice carrying clearly in the still night air. "The tower stands eternal," another responded. "The sacrifice feeds both," completed the third. They remained motionless for what felt like eternity, then continued across the clearing, disappearing into the forest beyond. Margaret's grip on my arm relaxed slightly. "When I start the engine, they'll hear," she whispered. "We'll have maybe 5 minutes before they converge. The road's washed out in sections. It'll be rough going." She pressed keys into my hand. "If I don't make it to the highway, keep driving east. There's a state trooper checkpoint at the county line. Don't stop for anyone else, no matter what uniform they're wearing." The truck's engine roared to life with a sound that seemed impossibly loud after our careful silence. Margaret navigated the narrow forest path with terrifying speed, the old vehicle bouncing and sliding on the muddy track. Headlights illuminated the road just seconds before we traveled it, offering minimal reaction time for avoiding obstacles. Behind us, howls rose in chorus, followed by engines, ATVs or dirt bikes, their high-pitched whine growing steadily closer despite Margaret's skilled driving. We hit the main Forest Service road with a jolt that nearly sent us into the opposing ditch. Margaret wrenched the wheel, accelerating down the marginally better surface. My hopes surged. We were on a real road now, making real progress toward safety. That hope shattered as headlights appeared ahead, multiple vehicles forming a blockade across the narrow road. Margaret swore, then did the unthinkable. She accelerated directly toward them. "Get down," she commanded. "They'll shoot the windshield." The impact was apocalyptic. Metal screaming against metal, glass shattering, airbags deploying in an explosion of white that momentarily blinded me. Margaret had aimed for the weakest point in their blockade, sideswiping rather than hitting head-on. Somehow the truck remained operational, though steam poured from its hood as we careened past the stunned cultists. Gunshots rang out, bullets pinging against the truck's body panels. Margaret grunted once, sharply, but kept driving, hands locked on the wheel with unnatural strength. Only when we reached the paved country road 10 minutes later did I realize Margaret had been hit. Blood soaked her left side, her complexion ashen in the dashboard lights. "Highway's 5 miles ahead," she said through gritted teeth. "Almost there." But her strength was clearly fading, her reactions slowing dangerously. When she nearly drifted into oncoming traffic, I made a decision. "Pull over. I'm driving." She started to protest, but complied, the truck lurching to a stop on the shoulder. As we changed positions, headlights appeared in the distance behind us, pursuing vehicles moving at dangerous speed. I drove like my life depended on it, which it absolutely did. The truck handled like a wounded animal, pulling strongly to the right where the collision had damaged something critical in the suspension. Margaret directed me through increasingly labored breathing, one hand pressed to her bleeding side. "Next right, checkpoint should be visible, half-mile after turn." The pursuing vehicles had gained ground, now close enough that I could see they weren't police or Forest Service. These were civilian trucks modified with push bars and extra lighting, driven by figures whose faces remained hidden in darkness. The checkpoint appeared exactly as promised, flashing lights, barricades, and the blessed sight of state trooper vehicles. I laid on the horn continuously as we approached, drawing attention before screeching to a halt amid shouts of alarm and drawn weapons. "They're after us," I gasped to the first officer who reached my window, pointing at the approaching vehicles which had suddenly slowed upon seeing the police presence. "They killed people at the fire tower. They shot her. They hunted me through the forest." My words tumbled out incoherently, but the blood and our obvious distress spoke volumes. As troopers radioed for medical assistance and others moved to intercept the pursuing vehicles, I turned to Margaret, whose breathing had grown shallow. "Stay with me," I pleaded, grasping her cold hand. "Help is here. We made it." She smiled faintly, eyes focusing on something beyond me. "Be careful," she whispered. "The Watcher has many eyes, and the tower always stands, no matter how many times they burn it." Her hand tightened briefly on mine, then went slack, her final warning hanging in the air between us as paramedics arrived too late to save the woman who had given her life to save a stranger. The hospital in Denver kept me for 3 days, treatment for exposure, dehydration, and what the psychiatrist gently termed acute stress reaction. Police interviews blurred together. My story met with varying degrees of skepticism depending on the officer. Yes, I'd been staying in a fire lookout tower. Yes, someone had slashed my tires and blocked the road. Yes, people had pursued me through the forest. But my account of ritualistic altars and cultists bearing skull lanterns stretched credibility beyond what most were willing to accept. The prevailing theory emerged. I'd encountered illegal marijuana growers protecting their operation, and my imagination, fueled by isolation and fear, had transformed them into something more sinister. Margaret's death, at least, was undeniable. Ballistic analysis confirmed she'd been shot with a hunting rifle, the bullet matching calibers commonly used in the region. Her background raised more questions than it answered. She'd been living off-grid for nearly 30 years, her cabin unlicensed on federal land. No family contacts, no employment records. Some officers hinted she might have been involved with the very people she claimed to be hiding from. Others suggested mental illness, pointing to journals found in her cabin detailing decades of watcher encounters too bizarre to be credible. The pursuing vehicles had vanished before police could intercept them, their drivers evidently recognizing the futility of continuing the chase with law enforcement present. Searches of the forest area around the tower yielded nothing conclusive. No altar, as I described. No evidence of ceremonial activities. My Jeep was recovered with slashed tires exactly where I'd left it, but this could be attributed to vandalism rather than targeted action. Most damning to my account, the fire tower itself stood exactly as described in the rental listing, not a replica built on the ashes of a burned original as Margaret had claimed. Trauma can create false memories, the hospital psychiatrist explained during our final session. Your mind was searching for narrative coherence in a genuinely threatening situation. He prescribed anti-anxiety medication and recommended trauma counseling upon my return to Minneapolis. I nodded and agreed, not because I believed his explanation, but because arguing further would only extend my hospital stay. The one piece of evidence supporting my story, the photographs I'd seen at the altar site showing me inside the tower, had vanished along with my phone, lost somewhere in the forest during my desperate flight. Released with a clean bill of physical health if not mental stability, I checked into an airport hotel to await my rescheduled flight home. Sleep remained elusive, my body jerking awake at the slightest sound. Convinced howls and whispers filled the darkness beyond my window. During these sleepless hours, I searched online for any information about the tower's history, finding only standard Forest Service records and rental reviews. Then, buried in a digital archive of local newspapers, I discovered a single paragraph from October 1976. Forest Service fire tower destroyed in non-seasonal lightning strike. No casualties reported. No casualties reported. Yet Margaret had been certain the original lookout died in that fire. Following this thread led me deeper into digital archives until I found a missing persons report from the same month. Elijah Crawford, 34, Forest Service employee, last seen reporting for duty at the Thorodan Mountain Lookout Tower. The case remained unsolved, his disappearance attributed to possible desertion of post or animal attack after the tower's destruction forced him to hike out. A photograph showed a bearded man with kind eyes standing proudly before a structure identical to where I'd spent those terrifying nights. The flight home passed in a haze of exhaustion and unanswered questions. My apartment felt simultaneously alien and overwhelmingly safe, the familiar surroundings highlighted by their contrast to the wilderness horror I'd escaped. I should have felt relief returning to normalized life. Instead, unease followed me like a shadow, darkening even the most mundane activities. Nightmares plagued what little sleep I managed. Dreams of being watched through windows, of hands reaching from darkness, of whispering voices calling me back to the tower. 2 weeks after my return, a package arrived at my apartment with no return address, just my name and address written in disturbingly familiar handwriting. Inside was my phone, somehow recovered from the forest floor, its screen cracked but functional after charging. My hands trembled as I powered it on, already knowing what I would find. The photo gallery contained exactly one image, a night shot of my apartment building taken from across the street, my living room window illuminated and clearly showing me sitting on my couch the previous evening. Below it, the same message that had haunted the logbook: "They are watching." I reported the package to local police, who documented it, but offered little actual assistance. Threatening communications would be investigated if a pattern developed, but a single cryptic message didn't warrant protective measures. The officer suggested changing my locks and installing security cameras, reasonable precautions that did nothing to address the impossible reality that someone had tracked me to Minneapolis from remote Colorado wilderness. I didn't mention that my building already had security cameras covering all entrances, or that the front desk required visitor check-in. Whoever sent this had circumvented these measures effortlessly. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. I installed additional locks, blackout curtains, and motion-sensing lights, transforming my once cozy apartment into a paranoid fortress. At work, I jumped at sudden movements, earning concerned glances from colleagues who knew only that my relaxing wilderness vacation had somehow gone wrong. The trauma therapist I finally consulted suggested EMDR therapy and grounding techniques that proved useless against what wasn't just trauma, but ongoing threat. How do you ground yourself in reality when reality itself has become untrustworthy? 1 month after my return, I spotted him, a tall figure in what appeared to be Forest Service khakis, standing motionless across from my office building. Through the 9th floor window, I could see him clearly, looking directly up at me despite the impossibility of knowing which window was mine among hundreds. When I pointed him out to a coworker, she saw nothing unusual, just pedestrians going about their business. Security footage later showed no one matching the description. I began questioning my sanity until a delivery arrived at my desk the following day. A small package containing a pine cone and a handwritten note. "The tower misses you." The final straw came when my sister Nora called, voice tight with confusion and fear. "Someone's been asking about you," she said without preamble. "A man claiming to be from the Colorado Parks Department, verifying information about your stay at the lookout tower. He knew things, Val, where you grew up, our parents' names. I didn't tell him anything, but he already knew your address. He left a message for you." She hesitated before continuing. He said, "The watcher requires completion of the cycle." The call disconnected abruptly, and when I tried calling back, Nora's phone went straight to voicemail. That night, I packed what I could carry, withdrew my savings in cash, and abandoned my apartment without notice, leaving most possessions behind. I drove nonstop to Chicago, then traded my car for an older model at a dealership that didn't ask questions when offered cash. I adopted my middle name, changed my appearance, and found cash-only housing in a building with minimal security. Counterintuitively safer since it required no background check that might create digital footprints. For 6 months, I became a ghost, working remote jobs under assumed credentials, moving cities every few weeks, constantly watching for figures in Forest Service khaki. The isolation nearly broke me. Cut off from friends and family for their protection, I existed in a limbo between hypervigilance and crushing loneliness. Only one connection remained: anonymous communications with a journalist who'd taken interest in Margaret's death and the historical inconsistencies surrounding the Thorodon Mountain Lookout Tower. I never revealed my identity or current location, but shared everything I'd experienced, plus research material I continued to gather remotely. He found additional missing persons cases spanning decades, all with tangential connections to that area of Pike National Forest. His most significant discovery came through Freedom of Information Act requests for Forest Service employment records. The original tower had indeed burned in 1976, with lookout Elijah Crawford presumed dead, until personnel files revealed he'd mysteriously reappeared 2 months later, continuing employment for another 15 years before retirement. His supervisor at the time noted significant personality changes following his disappearance, attributing them to traumatic experience during the tower fire. Most disturbing was a photograph from a staff gathering in 1980, showing Crawford with several colleagues. His eyes reflected the camera flash in a way the others didn't, a strange, multi-pointed starlight pattern unlike normal red-eye effect. Winter turned to spring, then summer, my paranoia gradually dulling from razor-sharp to merely persistent. I began to wonder if perhaps the psychiatrist had been right about trauma-induced delusions. No pursuers had materialized despite my initial carelessness in flight. No more packages arrived. Perhaps the cult's reach was limited to Colorado after all, their interest in me fading once I'd escaped their territory. When the journalist's research hit bureaucratic walls and his emails became increasingly focused on sensationalist theories rather than verifiable facts, I decided to sever that final connection to the experience. That decision saved his life. 3 days after my last message informing him I would no longer be in contact, his apartment burned in what authorities ruled an electrical fire. He survived with severe injuries, though his research materials were completely destroyed. From my newest temporary home in Seattle, I read the news report with ice in my veins, the accompanying photograph showing fire investigators examining the scene, including a tall man in Forest Service khaki visible at the edge of the frame, his face turned just enough to avoid clear identification. The message couldn't have been clearer. Silence or others would pay the price. Nearly a year to the day after my escape from the Rodan Mountain, I received a text from an unknown number containing only GPS coordinates. Against every rational instinct, I searched them online, finding they indicated a location in Pike National Forest, not the fire tower, but the clearing where I discovered the altar. Accompanying the coordinates was a single sentence. The cycle remains incomplete until the watcher feeds. I should have ignored it. I should have discarded the burner phone and moved again immediately. Instead, I found myself researching flights to Denver, drawn by a compulsion I couldn't name. What pulled me back wasn't just fear or threat, but an unresolved mystery that had consumed my existence. Who was the watcher? What did the cult want? Why me specifically? The coordinates weren't just a threat, but an invitation, a chance to confront what had been haunting me instead of running forever. With methodical care, I prepared not as a victim, but as a hunter. Survival training, wilderness first aid certification, topographical maps memorized, weapons acquired through channels that asked no questions. If I returned to Colorado, it wouldn't be as prey. The forest had changed with the seasons, yet remained eerily familiar. Autumn painting the landscape in the same fiery colors that had first welcomed me to this place of nightmares. I approached the coordinates indirectly, establishing a hidden observation post days before the anniversary of my original visit. Through high-powered binoculars, I watched cult members prepare the clearing, rebuilding the altar, arranging new skulls, animal, I desperately hoped, and erecting a miniature replica of the fire tower at the center of the space. Their movements held ritualistic precision, activities timed to lunar phases I'd researched extensively during my months in hiding. What I witnessed during those 3 days of observation defied rational explanation. Figures that moved too fluidly to be fully human. Communication conducted without visible speech. Most disturbing was the presence I sensed rather than saw. Something occupying the miniature tower, something that caused the air around it to waver like heat distortion even in the cool autumn air. The cult members prostrated themselves before this anomaly, offering small animals whose cries cut off with disturbing abruptness when placed inside the structure. After each feeding, the distortion intensified briefly before settling back to barely perceptible ripples. On the anniversary night, they assembled in greater numbers, at least 30 cultists in ceremonial attire that incorporated Forest Service elements with primitive adornments of bone and antler. At their center stood a figure I recognized immediately despite the significant changes. Ranger Donovan, or whatever name he truly used, directed proceedings with the confidence of leadership, his movements more fluid than I remembered, his proportions subtly wrong, as if additional joints existed beneath his human exterior. When he spoke, his voice carried unnaturally through the clearing, vibrating at frequencies that made my recording equipment malfunction. "The watcher grows impatient," he intoned. "The cycle remains broken while the intended vessel roams free. The tower's hunger increases. We have provided substitute feedings, but the symmetry is destroyed." The assembled cultists swayed in perfect unison, a motion so synchronized it appeared choreographed. For 49 years the pattern held. The watcher takes one, becomes one, watches for the next. Elijah Crawford became its eyes until he passed the mantle. Now the tower stands empty of consciousness while the intended vessel still breathes the wrong air, sees through the wrong eyes. Understanding dawned with nauseating clarity. The tower wasn't merely a location for rituals or a lure for victims. It was a conduit for something that required human hosts. The Watcher wasn't a deity, but an entity that transferred between victims, presumably leaping to me next had their plan succeeded. What had Margaret called it? The tower always stands, no matter how many times they burn it. Not a physical structure, but something using structures as anchors in our reality, consuming consciousness rather than mere biological matter. The revelation should have sent me running once more. Instead, it crystallized my purpose. This entity had destroyed my life, killed Margaret, nearly killed the journalist. It would continue its cycle with or without me, claiming new victims indefinitely. The cults served as its procurers, its groundskeepers, but the entity itself was the true threat. As Donovan raised a ceremonial blade over a small animal bound at the altar, I made my decision. The high-powered rifle I'd brought felt solid against my shoulder as I lined up the shot, not at Donovan, but at the miniature tower where reality itself seemed to bend and warp. The shot shattered the knight's ritualistic chanting. The tower replica splintered, and something impossible happened. The air where it had stood tore open like fabric, revealing not forest behind it, but a writhing darkness punctuated by points of light arranged in patterns that hurt to perceive directly. A sound beyond hearing range vibrated through my bones as the tear widened, the cultists' synchronized movements deteriorating into chaotic panic. Some fled, others prostrated themselves. A few, including Donovan, moved toward the anomaly with arms outstretched in welcome or supplication. What emerged defied description in human language. Appendages that weren't quite limbs, surfaces that weren't quite skin, eyes that weren't entirely eyes. It engulfed Donovan completely, his body seeming to invert as it was absorbed. The remaining cultists scattered in terror as the entity expanded, tendrils of impossible geometry reaching toward the fleeing figures, catching several who dissipated like smoke or touched. I remained frozen in my observation post, fingers still on the trigger, as the manifestation grew to fill the clearing before suddenly contracting into a humanoid shape that solidified into an exact duplicate of Ranger Donovan. But wrong, joints bending in impossible directions as it oriented itself. Its head turned with mechanical precision toward my hidden position, despite being well concealed hundreds of yards away. Multiple voices emerged simultaneously from its approximation of a mouth. Vessel. The word contained multitudes of meaning. Hunger, recognition, ancient patience. It began moving in my direction with a gait that covered ground faster than physically possible, distance collapsing between us with each step. I fired repeatedly, bullets passing through it without resistance, leaving momentary holes that sealed instantly. I ran, not randomly as before, but along a predetermined escape route I'd mapped meticulously, leading deliberately toward the one place I believed might end this. The original tower site. Margaret had insisted it burned in 1976 with the lookout inside. Forest Service records confirmed the fire but claimed no casualties. The entity had taken Crawford but needed the physical tower as an anchor point. What would happen if I could destroy that anchor with the entity nearby? The theory was thin, based on fragments of Margaret's warnings and cult rituals I'd observed, but it represented my only hope. The tower loomed ahead, illuminated by moonlight filtering through clouds, identical to my memory, maintained in perfect condition despite its remote location. Its windows glowed faintly from within, though no light source should have existed. I reached the base of the stairs just as unnatural movement registered in my peripheral vision. The entity approaching with that same impossible speed, reality warping around its Donovan-shaped approximation. With no time to hesitate, I triggered the incendiary devices I'd planted hours earlier at strategic points around the tower's base. Flames erupted, accelerant catching with explosive force, fire racing up the wooden supports with unnatural hunger. The entity's advance faltered momentarily, its form fluctuating between Donovan's shape and something vastly more alien. An inhuman sound filled the air, not a scream, but its conceptual equivalent, frequencies that shattered my remaining equipment and caused blood to trickle from my ears. The tower began to collapse inward, consumed by fire that burned too quickly, too intensely for natural combustion. I should have retreated to a safe distance. Instead, some instinct drove me up the burning stairs, each step threatening to give way beneath my weight. The entity followed, movements now jerky and disjointed, as if struggling to maintain cohesion. Inside the tower, reality itself seemed thin, walls that were simultaneously burning and not burning, furniture that flickered between present and absent. At the center stood the Osborne Fire Finder, its circular mapping device now oriented vertically like a portal, its sighting mechanisms spinning independently despite having no operator. The entity reached the door as support beams crashed around us. In that moment of vulnerability, I made my final move, not attacking the entity directly, but the fire finder it seemed drawn toward. With strength born of desperation, I toppled the heavy metal device, sending it crashing through the weakened floor. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The entity convulsed, its Donovan shape peeling away in layers to reveal the impossible geometry beneath. The tear I'd glimpsed earlier reopened, not as a controlled portal, but as a chaotic rupture in reality itself, pulling at both the entity and the burning tower with gravitational force. As the floor collapsed beneath me, I caught a final glimpse of what lay beyond. Not darkness, but a vast lattice of interconnected towers stretching into infinity, each hosting a writhing presence that reached hungrily toward our world. My fall seemed to last both seconds and eternities, the concept of time stretching as reality unraveled around me. The impact never came. Instead, consciousness simply shifted. I awoke in a Denver hospital 3 days later, severe burns covering 40% of my body, no memory of how I'd been found or transported to safety. The official report stated I was discovered unconscious at the base of the fire tower, which had indeed burned completely, attributed to lightning strike, history eerily repeating itself. No trace remained of the entity or the cultists. Ranger Donovan was listed as missing, presumed dead in the same fire, though no remains were recovered. Forest Service records suddenly showed inconsistencies, as if someone, or something, had tampered with them repeatedly over decades. The tower rental listing disappeared from all official sites, the location recategorized as hazardous and closed to public access. Physical recovery took months. Psychological recovery may never complete. I remain uncertain what exactly happened that night or whether the entity was truly destroyed or merely banished temporarily. Sometimes in dreams, I see through eyes not my own, gazing down from great heights at landscapes both familiar and alien. Upon waking, I find my hands arranging household objects into tower-like structures without conscious intent. Most disturbing, I occasionally catch glimpses of my reflection behaving with subtle independence, movements that lag by milliseconds, expressions I don't recognize passing fleetingly across my face. The journalist recovered from his injuries and published a series of articles about missing persons in national parks, carefully avoiding direct references to cults or entities that would damage his credibility. We maintain cautious contact, sharing information through channels designed to close immediately if compromised. His research has identified other potential sites across the country, fire towers with unusual histories, higher than average disappearance rates, local legends about watchers or guardians that don't quite align with standard folklore. I don't know if I destroyed the entity, banished it temporarily, or merely disrupted its feeding cycle. I don't know if the cult will regroup or if its members have been consumed by what they worshipped. Most critically, I don't know if my encounter with the Terran reality left me truly human or partially altered. What I do know is that lookout towers still call to me, their silhouettes on distant peaks drawing my gaze like beacons. And sometimes, in perfect stillness, I hear tapping on windows even when no windows are nearby. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. A message I both dread and somehow understand. The watcher may be gone, but I can't escape the unsettling possibility that now, in some fundamental way, I have become what I destroyed. A vessel, a conduit, a pair of eyes gazing from heights both metaphorical and literal. Perhaps this journal will serve as warning to others should the cycle begin again. Perhaps it already has. I'm Thane Carver, 41 years old, and I live in Grand Junction, Colorado. Been itching to get out of town. Work's been a grind, fixing busted AC units in the desert heat. So, I load up my beat-to-hell Jeep Cherokee and point it toward Telluride. The San Miguel Mountains out there are calling my name, rugged, remote, perfect for a solo camping trip. I've got the essentials, cooler with sandwiches and beer, sleeping bag, flashlight. Planning to sleep in the Jeep, parked near some old lookout tower I found on a map. Sounds peaceful, right? The drive's long, winding through canyons and up switchbacks. Telluride's this postcard town, Victorian houses, ski lifts, but I'm bypassing it for the backcountry. The Jeep rattles over a dirt road, pines closing in, and I'm grinning like a kid. Been too long since I did this. My ex, Leora, used to say I'm nuts for camping alone. Maybe she's right, but I like the quiet, no one yapping in my ear. I pull up to the spot as the sun's dipping behind the peaks. It's a clearing off Lizard Head Pass, the lookout tower looming 100 yards up a rocky slope. It's old, weathered, one of those Forest Service relics, rusted stairs, peeling paint. Kinda creepy in the twilight, but I'm not here for architecture. I crack a beer, lean against the Jeep, and watch the sky turn purple. The air's sharp, smells like snow even though it's spring. Perfect. Settling in's easy. I fold the Jeep's back seats flat, spread out my gear, and lock the doors. Feels like a fortress, safe, cozy. I'm munching a sandwich, sipping another brew, when I notice how dead quiet it is. No wind, no critters, just this heavy stillness. Reminds me of that time I got stranded on a job site in Moab. Eerie as hell. I shake it off, chalk it up to being alone. The tower's silhouette catches my eye through the windshield. It's got this lonely vibe, standing there like a forgotten guard. I heard they used to man those things full-time, spotting fires, keeping watch. Now it's just me in it. I flick on the flashlight, sweep the beam across the clearing. Nothing but dirt and trees. Still, my skin's prickling, like I'm not as alone as I think. I'm half asleep, sprawled in the back, when the first weird thing hits. A thud, soft, muffled, against the Jeep's roof. I jolt upright, heart kicking. Could be a pine cone, sure, but it felt heavier. I listen hard, holding my breath. Nothing follows. Screw it, I mutter, lying back down. Probably just the woods settling. Happens all the time. Sleep's tough after that. I'm drifting in and out, flashlight clutched like a lifeline. Around midnight, I wake to piss, too many beers. I crack the door, step out, and freeze. The air's thick, like it's watching me. I scan the clearing, beam landing on the tower. Something's off. There's a light up there, faint, flickering. No way that's normal. I'm back in the Jeep fast, locking up, telling myself it's a reflection. Towers don't light up on their own. Abandoned ones don't, anyway. But I can't unsee it. I'm staring through the glass, that glow winking like a signal. My gut's twisting, saying I should have stayed home. By 2 a.m., I'm wide awake, flashlight off, just listening. The woods are too quiet again, and that light's still there, steady now. Something's up, and I'm starting to think this trip was a bad call. I'm up at dawn, bleary-eyed, neck stiff from dozing in the Jeep. That light in the tower kept me wired all night, flickering like some messed up beacon. I climb out, boots crunching frost, and squint up at it. The tower's dark now, just a hulking shadow against the gray sky. No glow, no nothing. Maybe I imagined it. Sleep deprivation's a hell of a drug. Still, my stomach's knotted, and I'm not buying my own excuses. Coffee's my first move. I fire up a little camp stove, hands shaky as I pour water. The clearing's quiet, too quiet again. No birds, no breeze. Just me and this damn tower staring each other down. I'm sipping black coffee, bitter as my mood, when I notice the Jeep. There's a dent on the roof, small but real, right where that thud hit last night. Not a pine cone. Too clean, too deep. What the hell? I mutter, running my fingers over it. I decide to check the tower. Could be squatters, some drifter messing around up there. I grab my flashlight and a tire iron from the Jeep. Better than nothing if it's trouble. The hike up's brutal, steep, rocky, my breath fogging in the cold. The stairs creak under me, rusted metal groaning like it's alive. I'm halfway up, gripping the rail, when I spot scratches on the steps. Fresh, jagged, like something clawed its way up. My skin crawls, but I keep going. At the top, the trapdoor's ajar. I push it open, tire iron ready, and poke my head in. The room's a wreck. Broken chair, cracked windows, dust thick as carpet. No one's here, but there's a smell. Sharp, sour, like sweat and rot mixed. I sweep the flashlight around, heart thumping. There's a logbook on the floor, pages torn, and I flip it open. Last entries dated 1997. Saw lights again. Not alone. My throat tightens. Same crap I saw. Back outside, I'm rattled. That book's got me thinking this place is bad news. I'm trudging down when I hear it. A crack, loud, from the trees below. I freeze, scanning the woods. Something moves, fast, darting between pines. Too big for a deer, too quiet for a bear. Hey, I yell, dumb as hell, but it's gone. My grip tightens on the tire iron, and I'm booking it to the Jeep. I'm back in the clearing, panting, when I see the tracks. Not mine, wider, deeper, circling the Jeep. They're fresh, pressed into the dirt like someone, or something, scoped me out. My coffee's cold now, and I'm kicking myself for coming alone. Should have brought my buddy Elton. He's a big guy, ex-cop, wouldn't flinch at this. Me? I'm freaking out, but I'm not packing up yet. Gotta figure this out. I decide to stay put, keep an eye on things. Driving off feels like running from a fight I didn't start. I check the Jeep, doors locked, windows up, and climb in, tire iron on the seat. The tower's looming up there, mocking me. Midday sun's out, but it's doing jack to shake this creepy vibe. I'm chewing a sandwich, barely tasting it, when I spot something new, smudges on the driver's window, streaky, like fingers pressed hard. I wipe them off with my sleeve, muttering curses. Could be kids, sure, but out here? Telluride's miles away, and this ain't a hot spot. I'm starting to think that light last night wasn't random. I dig out my phone. No signal, big surprise, and snap pics of the tracks, the smudges. Proof, maybe, if I ever tell this story. The day drags, and I'm jumpy, checking mirrors every 5 seconds. Dusk hits fast, sky bleeding red. I'm in the Jeep, locked tight, flashlight ready. That's when I see it again. Light in the tower, steady this time, glowing like a damn eye. My chest's tight, and I'm wondering if I should have bolted when I had the chance. Then something taps the roof. Once, twice, slow, like it's testing me. I'm bolted upright in the Jeep, flashlight shaking in my hand as that tapping on the roof stops. It's dead quiet now, the kind of silence that screams trouble. My breath's fogging the windows, and I'm staring at the tower. That light's still burning, steady and wrong. Whatever's up there, it's not some drifter with a lantern. I feel it in my bones. This is horror-level bad, and I'm smack in the middle of it. I flick the flashlight off, like that'll hide me, and hunker down. The dark's thick, pressing against the Jeep, and I'm clutching the tire iron so hard my knuckles ache. Then it comes, a low, buzzing hum, faint at first, rising like a swarm of pissed-off bees. It's coming from the tower, vibrating through the air, and my stomach flips. I've heard coyotes, windstorms, even a busted compressor. This ain't any of that. It's alive. The hum shifts, splitting into sharp, jagged bursts, like voices arguing in static. I'm sweating now, despite the cold, telling myself it's the Jeep's old radio acting up. But it's off, been off all day. I risk a peek out the windshield, and that's when I see it, a shape, hunched, sliding down the tower stairs. Too tall, too thin, moving like its joints don't bend right. My throat's dry, and I'm whispering, no way, like that'll make it disappear. It hits the ground, and another joins it. 2 of them now, loping toward the clearing. The light in the tower flares, bright enough to sting my eyes, and I duck low, heart hammering. They're close, 10 yards, maybe less, and I hear this scraping, like nails on metal, along the Jeep's side. I bite my lip to keep from yelling, tasting blood. The buzzing's louder, drilling into my skull, and I'm praying they don't know I'm here. One stops right outside my window. I feel it more than see it. The glass fogs up, slow and deliberate, like something's breathing on it. I'm frozen, tire iron useless in my lap, thinking about every dumb horror flick where the guy doesn't make it. The smudge comes next, long, streaky, pressed hard against the glass. I'm shaking, fighting the urge to scream, when it pulls back, vanishing into the dark with the other one. The buzzing fades, but not the dread. I wait, minutes stretching into forever, till I'm sure they're gone. The tower's light dims, winking out, and I'm left in pitch black. I crank the Jeep's engine, hands slippery with sweat, and the headlights snap on. Nothing's there. No shapes, no tracks, just the clearing staring back. But I know what I saw, and it's not my imagination screwing with me. Those things were real, and they're playing with me. I'm about to peel out, screw this trip, when the radio crackles to life. Static, then a voice, garbled and deep. Stay. I slam the off button, but it keeps hissing, looping that word. My skin's crawling, and I'm thinking about that logbook, not alone. Whoever wrote that knew, and now I do too. I kill the engine, too freaked to drive and lock eyes on the tower. It's dark, but I feel it watching. Hours crawl by, me hunched in the driver's seat, tire iron ready. The buzzing's gone, but every snap in the woods jolts me. Dawn's close. I can see the sky lightening, but then I hear it. Footsteps, heavy, circling the Jeep. Not human, not animal, something else. I flick the headlights on, catch a glimpse of legs, pale and twisted, darting out of sight. My voice cracks. Leave me alone, but it's pointless. The sun's edging up, and the footsteps stop. I'm a wreck, sweaty, exhausted, clinging to the hope daylights might tick it out. But as the first rays hit the clearing, I see it, etched in the dirt around the Jeep, a ring of symbols, jagged and deep. They weren't there yesterday, and I sure as hell didn't make them. I'm done. Screw the Jeep, screw the tower, screw everything. Sun's barely up, but those symbols carved around me are a big neon sign saying get out. I crank the engine, tires spinning dirt as I gun it out of the clearing. The Jeep's rattling like it's gonna fall apart, but I don't care. Those things from last night are burned in my head, and I'm not sticking around to see him again. My hands are slick on the wheel, eyes darting to the mirrors, half expecting those twisted legs to lunge out of the trees. The road's a mess, ruts and rocks banging the undercarriage, but I'm flying, pushing 60 on a path built for 20. The tower's shrinking in the rear view, and I'm praying distance is my savior. Then the engine sputters, gas gauge has been lying, and I'm running on fumes. Come on, you piece of junk, I growl, coaxing it downhill. It coughs, dies, and I coast to a stop, stranded halfway to Telluride. My heart's in my throat, alone, exposed, nowhere to hide. I grab the tire iron and flashlight, ditch the Jeep, and start hoofing it. The woods are thick, pines clawing at me, and every snap's got me swinging the light like a maniac. That buzzing's back, faint, but rising, and I know they're coming. I'm stumbling, legs burning, when I spot it. An old shed, half-rotted, tucked in a gully. I dive inside, slamming the door, and wedge the tire iron under the handle. It's dark, stinks of mildew, but it's something. The buzzing's loud now, right outside. I'm crouched behind a busted crate, breath shallow. When the walls shake, something's ramming the shed, hard, with splinters, and I see it through a crack. One of those things, pale and jerky, slamming its weight against the door. The tire iron holds, but barely. I'm gripping the flashlight, ready to bash its skull if it gets in, thinking about my buddy Elton. Should have dragged him along. He'd know what to do. It stops, sudden, and the silence is worse. I hear that voice again, stay, low and warped, like it's in my head. Then footsteps, circling, slow and deliberate. My chest's tight, panic clawing up, when I spot a rusted hatch in the floor. Old trapdoor, maybe a cellar. I pry it open, drop down into damp dark, and pull it shut. It's tight, smells like death, but I'm hidden, curled up with the tire iron across my lap. Hours pass, I think. The buzzing fades, footsteps too, but I'm not moving. My phone's dead, flashlight dimming, and I'm shaking, waiting for daylight to mean something. Finally, I hear a new sound, tires on gravel, voices. I risk it, shove the hatch open, and climb out. It's a Forest Service truck, two guys in vests staring at the shed like it's a crime scene. You okay? One yells. I stagger out, babbling about the tower, the things. They look at me like I'm nuts, but they've got a radio, help. They drive me to Telluride, me in the back, tire iron still clutched. The ranger, guy named Voss, asks what I saw. I tell him, shapes, buzzing, symbols. He nods, too calm, says, folks get lost up here. Weird stuff happens. I'm not buying his brush off. Those things weren't hallucinations. We pass the Jeep, abandoned, and I see it. Scratches deep in the hood, like claws dug in. Voss doesn't blink. I'm in town, safe, gulping coffee at a gas station. The rangers tow my Jeep, say it's a write-off. Fuel line's cut, not empty. I'm replaying it all. That voice, those shapes, and I know I barely made it. My arm's bruised, hands scraped raw, but I'm breathing. For now, they're out there still, and I feel their eyes on me, even here. I'm not safe, not really. It's been 2 days since Telluride, and I'm back in Grand Junction, holed up in my apartment. Can't sleep. Every creak's that buzzing, every shadow's those things. I've got the tire iron by my bed, flashlight too, like that'll save me. Told my sister, Nessa, the story over the phone. She thinks I'm cracked, says it's stress, but I hear the doubt in her voice. She's wrong. This was real, and it's eating me alive. I hit the bar last night, trying to drown it. Couple beers in, I'm spilling it to the bartender. Tower, shapes, the works. He laughs, says I should write a book, but his eyes flick to the door too quick. Later, some guy in a booth, old, grizzled, leans over. Lizard heads cursed, he mutters. Seen it myself, 82. Never went back. He's gone before I can ask more, and I'm left with this sick feeling he's right. Work calls, boss wants me on a job. I say no, first time ever. Can't leave the house, not yet. My arm's healing, but my head's a mess. I search online, Telluride disappearances, and it's a rabbit hole. Hikers, campers, vanishings going back decades. One post mentions a tower, lights, weird tracks. My gut twists. I'm not the first, won't be the last. Should have stayed home, fixed units, lived boring. Night 3. I'm dumb enough to think it's over. I'm on the couch, TV blaring, when the power cuts. Dead silence. Then that hum, soft, creeping through the walls. My heart stops. I grab the tire iron, stumble to the window, and see it. A shape, tall and wrong, standing under the streetlight across the road. It's here, followed me. I blink, and it's gone, but the buzzing's louder, rattling my skull. I'm barricading the door, couch, table, anything, when the phone rings. Unknown number. I answer, shaking, and it's that voice. Stay. Click. I drop it, back against the wall, tire iron up. The windows rattle, slow and rhythmic, like something's tapping to get in. I'm yelling, leave me alone. But it's useless, they don't stop. Morning comes, power's back, and I'm a wreck. Curled up, tire iron dented from swinging at shadows. Neighbor bangs the door, says I was screaming all night. I mumble some excuse, but he sees the scratches on my frame. Deep, fresh. Kids, he says, unconvinced. I nod, lying, and lock up tight when he's gone. I'm moving, leaving Grand Junction, Colorado, everything. Can't stay where they can find me. Called Elton, told him enough. He's coming tomorrow, helping me pack. I'm jumping at every noise, seeing those symbols in my head, etched in dirt, now in me. My mistake was going to Telluride, thinking I could handle the wild alone. They're still out there, waiting. I hear the buzzing some nights, faint, promising they'll catch up. I'm alive, but it's not over, not even close. Last night, I saw the old guy from the bar outside my window, just standing there. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Then the buzzing started again. I'm Soren Vale, 38 years old, and I live in Montrose, Colorado. Life's been a slog lately. Running a hardware store's all wrenches and whining customers, so I'm itching for a break. Decided to take my Dodge Ram out to Crested Butte, camp in the back, and breathe some mountain air. The Gunnison National Forest up there's wild, jagged peaks, endless pines, just what I need to unplug. Packed my cooler with burgers and whiskey, tossed in a sleeping bag, and hit the road solo. Nobody else was free, but I'm good with my own company. The drive's gorgeous, highway cutting through valleys, snow still patching the ridges even in April. Crested Butte's this artsy little spot, but I'm not here for galleries. I'm aiming for a forest road off Kebler Pass, a quiet stretch where I can park and crash in the truck bed. Been doing this since I was a kid. Dad used to haul me out here, teaching me how to grill over a fire. Feels like home, even if it's just me now. I roll in late afternoon, sun dipping low, painting the trees gold. The spot's perfect, gravel pullout, framed by aspens, with a killer view of the West Elk Mountains. I hop out, stretch my legs, and crack a whiskey, sipping it straight from the bottle. Air's crisp, smells like pine and earth, and I'm already unwinding. The Ram's got a cap over the bed, so I set up quick. Air mattress, blankets, lantern. Cozy as hell, and I'm grinning like an idiot. I'm kicking back, watching the sky shift to dusk, when I notice the quiet. No birds, no wind, just this thick stillness that settles over everything. Reminds me of that time I got stuck in a snowstorm out here. Eerie, but I shrug it off. Been too long in town. I'm just rusty. I grill a burger on a little propane stove, grease sizzling, and scarf it down. Tastes better out here, always does. The stars are popping out, sharp and bright, and I'm sprawled in the truck bed, lantern casting a soft glow. My buddy Cade would have loved this. He's a park ranger down near Uray, always yapping about the backcountry. Almost called him, but I wanted the solitude. I lock the tailgate, climb in, and settle down, bottle tucked beside me. The forest feels alive at night, but I'm good, safe in my steel cocoon. I'm dozing off, half buzzed, when something jars me awake. A thump, low and solid, against the truck's side. I sit up, groggy, figuring it's a branch or some critter. Flashlight's in reach, so I flick it on, sweep the beam through the window. Nothing, just trees and dark. Chill out, Soren, I mutter, lying back. Probably a raccoon sniffing around. Sleep's patchy after that. I wake once, needing to piss, and crack the tailgate. Moon's high, bathing everything in this pale, creepy light. I step out, boots crunching, and handle business quick. That's when I see it. Scuff marks in the gravel, fresh, trailing off toward the woods. Not mine, I parked hours ago. My pulse kicks up, but I tell myself it's hikers, maybe a ranger. Still, I'm back in the ram fast, locking up tight. Lying there, I can't shake it. The quiet's heavier now, pressing in, and those marks are nagging at me. I grab the flashlight again, shine it out the rear window. The beam catches something, a glint, quick and low, darting between trees. My breath hitches. Could be an animal, sure, but it felt off. By 3 a.m., I'm wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The lantern's dim, and I'm straining to hear anything over my own breathing. Then it comes, a faint scratch, slow and deliberate, along the truck's side. My heart's pounding, and I'm wondering if solitude was such a hot idea after all. Morning slams me awake, cold seeping into the truck bed, my back screaming from the air mattress. That scratching from last night's got me wired, and I'm up fast, peering out the window. The gravel's still got those scuff marks, smeared like something dragged itself around. No prints, just chaos in the dirt. I climb out, boots crunching, and check the ram. There's a scratch, shallow, but fresh, along the driver's side. Not deep enough for a bear, too clean for a branch. My stomach's doing flips, but I'm chalking it up to a coyote. Maybe. I fire up the stove, hands shaky as I brew coffee. The forest's quiet again. No squirrels, no wind, just this dead weight in the air. Sipping the brew, I'm staring at the tree lean, half expecting something to stare back. My plan was to hike today, explore up toward Marcellina Mountain, but those marks are messing with me. I dig out my map. There's a ranger station a few miles east, off the pass. Could swing by, see if anyone's around. I decide to stick close instead. No point wandering off with this creepy vibe hanging over me. I grab my flashlight and a wrench from the toolbox, better than nothing, and poke around the clearing. The scuffs loop the truck, then veer into the woods. I follow him a bit, twigs snapping underfoot, till they fade into pine needles. That's when I smell it. Faint, sour, like wet rot. Reminds me of a flooded basement I fixed once. I scan the trees, wrench tight in my grip, but it's just me and the silence. Back at the ram, I'm restless. I crank the radio, static, no signal, and kill it quick. My buddy Cade's voice pops in my head. Never camp without a plan B. Should have listened, maybe called him. I'm pacing, sipping more coffee, when I spot something new. A smudge on the tailgate window, greasy, like a palm pressed hard. My pulse jumps. Wasn't there yesterday. I wipe it off, muttering, kids, right? But this far out? Bullshit. Midday's lazy, sun's up, but it's doing nothing for the chill in my bones. I grill another burger, forcing it down, and decide to drive to the ranger station. Need to shake this, maybe report the weirdness. I'm rolling slow down the forest road, pines blurring past, when the engine stutters, battery light flickers. Not now, I growl, coaxing it along. Pulls through, but I'm sweating. Middle of nowhere's no place to break down. The station's a squat log cabin, radio mast poking up. I park, hop out, and bang the door. No answer. Peering in, it's dark, desk, maps, no one home. A sign says back at 3 p.m. It's 1 now. I wait, leaning on the ram, scanning the woods. That's when I hear it. A snap, sharp, off in the trees. I spin, wrench up, but nothing moves. My gut's screaming this ain't right. Back in the truck, I'm jumpy. Decide to head back to camp. Ranger's a bust, and I'm not sitting here exposed. The drive's tense, every shadow making me flinch. I pull into the clearing, and it hits me. The air's thicker, like it's holding its breath. I lock the doors, settle in, and crack a whiskey. Dusk's creeping in, and I'm kicking myself for not bailing to Montrose. I'm sipping, watching the light fade, when I see it, a figure, vague, standing at the tree line. Tall, still, just watching. My heart's in my throat. Ranger, maybe? I flash the headlights. Nothing, it's gone. Soren, you're losing it. I mutter, but my hands are shaking. I kill the lights, lock eyes on where it was, and wait. Night falls hard, and I'm in the truck bed, lantern low. That's when the scratching starts again, slow, deliberate, circling the ram. My breath catches, and I'm gripping the wrench, staring into the dark, knowing something's out there, and it's not playing nice. I'm hunched in the truck bed, wrench in hand, barely breathing as that scratching circles the ram. It's slow, methodical, like whatever's out there knows I'm trapped. The lantern's dim, casting jittery shadows, and I'm straining to see through the windows. Then it stops, dead silence, worse than the noise. My chest's tight, and I'm telling myself it's an animal, but deep down, I know that's a lie. This is something else, something scary as hell. I risk a peek, cracking the tailgate window an inch. Cold air rushes in, and I see it. A shape, tall and hunched, slipping between the trees. Too fast, too quiet, like it's gliding. My stomach drops. It's not a bear, not a ranger. Nothing human moves like that. I slam the window shut, lock it, and scoot back, heart hammering. The lantern flickers, and for a second, I swear I see eyes, flat, glinting, staring through the glass. A low hum starts up, deep and throaty, vibrating the truck. It's not mechanical, more like a growl stretched thin, coming from everywhere. I clap my hands over my ears, but it's inside my head, rattling my teeth. Stop it, I whisper, voice cracking, but it just gets louder. The ram shakes, something's pushing it, rocking it side to side. I yell, swinging the wrench at nothing, and it quits, sudden, leaving me in that suffocating quiet again. I'm panting, sweat soaking my shirt, when the radio sparks to life, static, then a voice, warped and slow. Here. I slam the off button, but it keeps hissing, looping that word. My skin's crawling, and I'm thinking about Cade. Ranger stories he told me, weird calls about lights, shapes. Never believed him till now. I grab the flashlight, flick it on, and sweep the beam outside. The light catches something, legs, pale and twisted, darting out of sight. They're back, two of them now, circling tight. The scratching starts again, sharper, like nails digging in. I see it, a claw, long and black, scraping the tailgate, leaving gouges. I'm yelling, get away. But it's pointless, they're toying with me. The hum spikes, splitting into shrieks, and the truck lurches, something's on the roof, heavy, denting it down. I swing the wrench up, hit metal, and it stops, but I hear it slink off, thudding to the ground. I'm shaking, flashlight beam bouncing, when I spot the ranger station lights, faint, flickering through the trees a few miles off. Could be help, could be a trap. My gut's screaming it's not a ranger out there, not after this. The shapes are gone, but the air's thick, like they're waiting. I crank the engine, thank God it starts, and peel out, tires spitting gravel, aiming for that light. Gotta move, gotta live. The road's a nightmare, dark, twisting, branches smacking the windshield. The hum's chasing me, echoing off the pines, and I'm pushing the ram hard. Something slams the passenger side, hard enough to crack the window, and I swerve, cursing. Rear view's black, but I feel close, relentless. The station's ahead, a dim glow, and I'm praying someone's there, anyone. I skid into the lot, truck fishtailing, and leap out, wrench up. The cabin's dark, door ajar, no ranger, no nothing. I stumble in, flashlight sweeping, desk flipped, papers shredded, blood smeared on the wall. My legs nearly give out. That hum's louder, closing in, and I hear footsteps, heavy, uneven, right outside. I'm cornered, and it's clear something's very wrong. I spin, beam landing on the doorway, and there it is, tall, skeletal, eyes like pits, staring me down. The hum's deafening, and I'm frozen, wrench slipping in my sweaty grip, knowing I'm in deep, disturbing shit. I'm staring down that thing in the ranger station doorway, wrench slipping in my sweaty hand, and my brain screaming one word, run. It lurches forward, jerky, too fast, and I swing wild, cracking its arm or whatever the hell that limb is. It shrieks, this high, jagged sound, and I bolt past it, out the door, back into the night. The hum's everywhere, buzzing my skull, but I'm hauling ass to the ram, legs pumping like my life depends on it. It does. I dive in, slam the door, and crank the engine. Tires squeal as I peel out, clipping something that thuds against the bumper. The station's shrinking in the rear view, but those shapes are on me. 2, maybe 3, loping alongside, keeping pace. My headlights catch M, pale, twisted, eyes glinting like wet glass. I swerve, trying to shake M, and one slams the hood, denting it deep. Get off, I yell, flooring it, and it rolls off, vanishing into the dark. The forest road's a blur, trees whipping past, the ram shaking like it's gonna bust apart. The hum's fading, but my heart's still jackhammering. I'm aiming for Crested Butte. Lights, people, anything, but the gas needle's kissing empty. Been too busy surviving to check it. The engine sputters, and I coast, cursing, till it dies on a curve, leaving me stranded. My flashlight's dim, wrench is all I've got, and the woods are closing in. I'm out, running again, breath ragged. The hum's back, low, stalking, and I hear him crashing through the brush behind me. There's a creek ahead, shallow but fast, and I splash through. I see water soaking me to the knees. I'm hoping it throws him off, like some movie trick, but they're relentless, splashing right after me. My boot slips, I go down hard, wrench skidding away, and one's on me, claw slashing my leg. I kick, connect, and scramble up, blood hot on my shin. Headlights cut the dark, a truck rumbling up the road. I wave, yelling, and it screeches to a stop. It's a ranger, older guy, grizzled, badge says halt. He's out, shotgun in hand, barking, get in. I stumble to the passenger side, dive in, and he's firing, blast lighting up the night. The shapes scatter, shrieking, and he guns it, tires spinning. What the hell were those? I gasp, leg bleeding all over his seat. He grunts, don't ask. We're barreling toward town, Holt's eyes locked on the road. The hum's gone, and I'm shaking, clutching my leg. He radios something, crackly, urgent, but I'm too wrecked to catch it. You're lucky, he mutters, glancing at me. Most don't make it. My gut twists, most. We hit Crested Butte, streetlights blazing, and he pulls into a clinic lot. I'm hobbling out, blood dripping. When I see the truck bed, claw marks, fresh and deep. Doc stitched me up, 18 jagged stitches, legs a mess. Holt's gone by the time I'm done, no goodbye, just a nod. Cops show up, asking about the ram, the station. I tell M, shapes, blood, everything. But they're skeptical, jotting notes like I'm drunk. They find my truck, towed it in, say it's trashed, hood caved, windows cracked. Bear, they call it. I don't argue. Sounds better than the truth. I'm crashing at a motel, leg throbbing, whiskey bottle empty. Holt left a card. Call if they come back. I'm staring at it, wondering what he knows, what he's seen. I got away, barely, but that hum's still in my head, faint, promising more. They're out there, and I'm not sure I lost him. Not really. It's been a week since Crested Butte, and I'm back in Montrose, locked in my apartment like a damn hermit. Legs healing slow, stitches itch, scars will be ugly. Can't work, can't sleep. Every creak's those things, every shadow's their eyes. I called Cade, my ranger buddy, spilled it all. He's quiet too long, then says, heard rumors. Old-timers talk about Kebler Pass, missing folks, weird shit. Thought it was bullshit. It's not, and I'm living proof. I hit the store's back office yesterday, grabbing payroll stuff. My clerk, Junie, asks why I'm limping. I laugh it off, tripped hiking, but she sees the bandage, the way I flinch at the door slamming. She doesn't push, just hands me coffee, and I'm grateful. Online's worse. Digging into Gunnison vanishings pulls up too much. Camper's gone, rangers quitting, whispers of things in the woods. My trip's starting to feel like a death wish. Night's the worst. I'm on the couch, TV loud, when the power flickers. My heart stops, same vibe as out there. I grab a hammer, wrench is trashed, and check the windows. Nothing, but the air is heavy, like it's waiting. I'm pacing, leg aching, when the phone rings. Unknown number. I answer, dumbass move, and it's static, then Holt's voice, clipped. They move fast. Lock up. Click. My blood's ice. I'm barricading, chair under the knob, blinds down, when the hum starts. Low, seeping through the walls, same as before. I'm cursing myself. Should have stayed home, fixed faucets, not chased solitude. Something taps the window, soft, deliberate, and I swing the hammer, shattering a lamp instead. The hum spikes, and I hear it. Footsteps, uneven, outside my door. I'm yelling, "Go away!" But it's pointless. They're here. Morning comes, power's on, and I'm a mess, curled up, hammer dented from gripping it. Neighbor bangs, says I was shouting again. I mumble nightmare, but he sees the scratches on my porch. Long, fresh. Cats, he says, frowning. I nod, lying, and bolt the door when he's gone. Holds cards on the table, and I call, straight to voicemail. They're back. I croak, hanging up. I'm selling the store, moving, anywhere but Colorado. Cade's driving up tomorrow, helping me pack. I'm jumping at shadows, hearing that hum in my sleep. My mistake was camping alone, thinking the woods were mine. They're not. They belong to whatever's out there, and I pissed him off. Last night, I saw Holt's truck parked across the street, lights off. He didn't get out, just sat there, watching. The hum started after he left, louder, closer. I'm checking locks when the power cuts again, and something scrapes the roof, slow and heavy. They followed me, and I'm running out of places to hide. I keep the hammer close, but it's not enough, not against them. Yesterday, I found a symbol scratched under my window, same jagged lines from the truck's dirt. They're marking me, and I know what that means. I'm Leora Hensley, 32 years old, and I live in Delta, Colorado. Been stuck in a rut, bartending nights, pouring cheap beer for the same grizzled faces. Needed a reset, so I loaded up my Toyota Tacoma and headed for Ouray. The Uncompahgre National Forest out there's got this rugged beauty. Peaks that bite the sky, trails that feel like secrets. I'm camping solo in the truck bed, just me, a sleeping bag, and a cooler of snacks and gin. Been craving the quiet, and this is my fix. The drive's a stunner. Highway snaking through canyons, Ouray popping up like a postcard with its hot springs and cliffs. I'm not here for the tourist crap, though. I'm aiming for a spot off Yankee Boy Basin, near an old lookout tower I found online. It's remote, rough, perfect. I pull in as the sun's fading, tires crunching gravel, and park in a clearing framed by aspens. The tower's up a ridge, tall, rusted, kinda spooky against the dusk. I hop out, stretch, and crack a gin and tonic from a can. The air's sharp, smells like pine and stone, and I'm already feeling lighter. The Tacoma's got a camper shell, so I set up quick. Blanket, pillow, lantern. It's snug, safe, like my own little bunker. I'm sipping, watching the stars blink on, thinking how my ex, Thane, would have hated this. He's all about noise and company. Me, I'm good alone. The quiet hits different out here. No bar chatter, no jukebox, just this deep hush wrapping around me. Reminds me of closing up shop after a slow shift, but bigger, wilder. I grill a hot dog on a tiny stove, scarf it down, and lean against the truck, soaking it in. The tower's silhouette catches my eye. Looming, lonely, like it's got stories it ain't telling. I'm settling in, locking the tailgate, when I notice how still it is. No crickets, no breeze, just dead air. Shrug it off, city girl jumping at nothing. I climb into the truck bed, lantern low, and sip more gin, letting it warm me up. My sister, Mara, texted earlier, asking why I'd camp alone. You're nuts, she said. Maybe, but it's my kind of nuts. I'm half asleep, cozy under the blanket, when something jolts me. A tap, sharp, on the camper shell. I freeze, eyes wide, telling myself it's a branch. Grab my flashlight, flick it on, and sweep the beam through the window. Nothing, just trees and dark. Relax, Leora, I mutter, settling back. Probably a squirrel, right? Sleep's dodgy after that. I wake once, bladder nagging, and crack the tailgate. Moon's up, casting this pale, creepy glow over everything. I step out, quick and quiet, and handle it. That's when I see him, scratches in the dirt near the truck, fresh, like something dragged its nails. My pulse kicks up, not mine, no way. I'm back inside fast, locking up, chalking it up to a raccoon or some hiker's dog. Lying there, I can't shake it. The quiet's thicker now, pressing in, and those scratches are itching at my brain. I shine the flashlight out again, catch a flicker, something low, darting past the trees. My breath hitches. Animal, sure, but it moved weird, too smooth, too quick. By 2 a.m., I'm wired, staring at the camper roof. The lantern's dimming, and I'm listening hard, gin can still in hand. Then it comes, a low creak, like weight shifting on the truck. My heart's pounding, and I'm wondering if solitude's about to bite me in the ass. Morning slaps me awake, cold air sneaking into the truck bed, my neck stiff from curling up all night. That creak kept me on edge, and I'm up fast, peering out the window. The scratches in the dirt are still there, sharper in daylight, looping around the Tacoma. I climb out, boots crunching, and check the truck. There's a mark, faint, scuffed, on the camper shell where that tap hit. Not a branch, too precise. My stomach's churning, but I'm telling myself it's nothing, just wildlife messing around. I fire up my stove, hands jittery as I heat water for instant coffee. The forest's dead quiet, no birds, no rustling, just this heavy vibe that's got my nerves twitching. Sipping the brew, I'm eyeing the lookout tower up the ridge. It's got this brooding look, rusted and still, like it's watching me back. I was gonna hike up there today, poke around, but those scratches are throwing me off. There's a ranger post a few miles down the pass, maybe worth a check. I decide to scope the area instead. No point wandering too far with this weirdness nagging me. I grab my flashlight and a pocket knife, small, but it's something, and circle the clearing. The scratches trail off into the trees, and I follow, heart thumping. The air shifts, faint whiff of something sour, like spoiled meat. Reminds me of a dumpster behind the bar after a hot night. I scan the pines, knife out, but it's just me and the woods. Back at the truck, I'm antsy. I crank the radio, static, no dice, and shut it off. Mara's voice echoes in my head. You're nuts. Starting to think she's onto something. I'm pacing, coffee cold, when I spot it. A smudge on the driver's window, streaky, like fingers dragged across. My breath catches. Wasn't there yesterday. I'd have noticed. I wipe it off with my sleeve, muttering, kids, right? But out here? Fat chance. Midday drags, sun's up, but the chill's stuck in my bones. I heat a can of soup, slurping it down, and decide to drive to the ranger post. Need to shake this, maybe flag the weirdness. I'm rolling slow, trees blurring, when the engine hiccups, dash light blinks, then fades. Don't you dare, I growl, and it steadies. Breaking down out here's not an option, not with that vibe creeping in. The post's a small shack, signs swinging in the breeze. I knock, nothing. Window's dark, but there's a note. Out on patrol, back later. Great. I wait, leaning on the Tacoma, scanning the woods. A branch snaps, loud, off to my left. I spin, knife up, but it's just trees staring back. My gut's twisting, something's off, and I'm feeling it hard. I head back to camp, drive tense, every shadow making me jump. Pulling in, the air's heavier, like it's holding a secret. I lock the truck, settle in, and crack a gin. Dusk's hitting fast, and I'm kicking myself for not bailing to Delta. I'm sipping, watching the light bleed out, when I see it, a shape, vague, at the tree lean. Tall, still, just there. My throat tightens. Ranger? I flash the headlights, it's gone. Leora, chill. I mutter, but my hands are shaky. Night falls quick, and I'm in the truck bed, lantern low. That's when the creaking starts again, slow, deliberate, rocking the Tacoma. My pulse spikes, and I'm gripping the knife, staring into the dark. Something taps the window, once, twice, like it's knocking to come in. I'm frozen, breath shallow, when the lantern catches it. A shadow, long and wrong, sliding past the glass. My heart's hammering, and I know I'm not alone out here, not by a long shot. I'm clutching the pocket knife, eyes locked on that shadow slinking past the Tacoma's window, and my whole body's screaming to move. The lantern's flickering, throwing jagged shapes across the truck bed, and that tapping's back, slow, deliberate, like it's taunting me. Then it stops, and the silence is worse, thick, suffocating, like the air's holding its breath. My heart's pounding so hard I can hear it, and I'm telling myself it's a trick, a shadow from the trees, but I know that's crap. This is horror level wrong. I kill the lantern, darkness might hide me, and hunker down, barely breathing. That's when the hum kicks in, low, guttural, rumbling through the truck. It's not wind, not an engine, more like a voice dragged through gravel, vibrating my bones. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it's inside me, clawing at my skull. Go away, I whisper, voice shaking, but it just swells, splitting into sharp, piercing whines. The Tacoma jolts, something shoving it, hard, rocking me side to side. I'm scrambling, knife slipping in my sweaty grip, when I hear it, scratching, deep and slow, carving into the metal. I flick the flashlight on, beam shaky, and catch it. A claw, black and curved, gouging the camper shell. My stomach lurches. I bang the roof, yelling, "Get off!" And it stops, but I hear a thud, something heavy hitting the ground outside. The hum spikes, and I feel it. Eyes on me, watching from the dark. I risk a look, cracking the window an inch. Cold air hits, and I see him. Two shapes, tall and bent, gliding between the trees. Too smooth, too wrong, like their joints don't work right. My throat's dry, and I slam the window shut, locking it tight. They're circling now, closing in, and the scratching's back, faster, all around me. The truck shakes again, harder, and I'm swinging the flashlight like a bat, yelling nonsense to keep him off. One stops, right at the tailgate. The glass fogs, slow and wet, like it's breathing on it. I'm frozen, knife useless, thinking about every bar story I laughed off. Drunk guys swearing they saw shit in the woods. This ain't that. This is real, and it's terrifying. The fog smears, a long streak. Then it's gone, melting into the dark with the other one. The hum drops, but my chest's still tight. Disturbing doesn't even cover it. I wait, curled up, flashlight dimming. Hours drag, maybe minutes, who knows. I'm about to move when the radio crackles, static, then a voice, warped and deep. Mine. I slam it off, but it loops, hissing that word. My skin's crawling, and I'm thinking about Mara. Should have listened, stayed home. I sweep the beam outside. Nothing, just trees, but the tower's up there, and I swear I see a light. Faint, winking like a signal. I crank the engine, gotta get out of here. The Tacoma roars, and I peel out. Tires spitting gravel, aiming for the ranger post. The hum's chasing me, echoing off the pines, and something slams the side, cracks the passenger window. I swerve, cursing, and keep going. Rear view's black, but they're there. I feel M, relentless, stalking me through the night. The posts ahead, dark, no lights. I skid in, leap out, knife up, and bang the door. Nothing, still empty. Inside's a wreck, chairs smashed, maps torn, a bloody handprint on the wall. My legs wobble. The hum's louder, footsteps crunching outside, and I'm cornered, flashlight shaking in my hand. I spin, beam landing on the doorway, and there it is, tall, skeletal, head cocked, staring me down. The hum's deafening, splitting my head, and it steps closer, claw clicking on the floor. I'm backed against the wall, knife trembling, knowing I'm in some deep, scary shit, and there's no way out. I'm pinned against the ranger post wall, that thing looming in the doorway, its claw tapping the floor like a countdown. My knife's shaking in my hand, useless against whatever this is, and the hum splitting my skull. I lunge, dumb, desperate, slashing at its arm. It screeches, reeling back, and I bolt past, out into the night. The air's thick, buzzing, but I'm running, legs burning, aiming for the Tacoma. Gotta get out, gotta live. I dive in, slam the door, and crank the engine. Tires scream as I peel out of there, gravel flying. The headlights catch M, two shapes, loping fast, keeping up. One slams the hood, denting it deep, and I swerve, yelling, "Back off." It tumbles off, but the other's still there, clawing the side, gouging metal. My heart's hammering, and I'm pushing the truck hard, weaving down the pass, praying it holds together. The road's a mess, ruts, rocks, branches smacking the windshield. The hum's fading, but I'm not slowing, can't. Gas is low, been too freaked to check, and the engine sputters, coughing hard. No, no, no. I mutter, coasting downhill as it dies, leaving me stranded halfway to Ouray. I grab the knife and flashlight, ditch the truck, and run, breath ragged, woods closing in tight. They're back, crashing through the trees behind me. The hum's rising, and I'm stumbling, flashlight beam bouncing wild. I spot a ravine, steep, rocky, and slide down, scraping my hands raw. Hit the bottom, creek rushing past, and wade through. I see water soaking me. I'm hoping it masks me, but they're right there, splashing after, relentless. One lunges, claw slashing my arm, and I swing the knife, connect, and keep running, blood dripping hot. Headlights pierce the dark, a rig rumbling up the road. I wave, screaming, and it screeches to a stop. It's a ranger, stocky, gray-haired. Badge says Graves. He's out, rifle up, yelling, "Move." I scramble to the passenger's side, dive in, and he's firing, blasts echoing as the shapes scatter. "Go!" I gasp, arm bleeding all over his seat. He floors it, tires spinning, and we're out of there, the hum fading fast. We're barreling toward Uray, Graves stone-faced, radio crackling. "What were they?" I choke out, clutching my arm. He grunts, "Old things. Don't come back." My head spinning, "Old things?" We hit town, lights blazing, and he pulls into a clinic lot. I'm stumbling out, blood soaking my sleeve, and he's gone, rifle and all, before I can blink. The truck's tailgate's scratched to hell, claw marks deep. Docs patch me up, 12 stitches, arms a mess. Cops show, asking about the Tacoma, the post. I tell them, shapes, blood, everything. But they're skeptical, scribbling like I'm wasted. They tow my truck, hood caved, side shredded, call it vandalism. I don't fight it, truth's crazier. I'm crashing at a motel, arm throbbing, gin can empty, replaying Graves' words. I got away, barely. I'm safe for now. But that hum's still in my ears, faint, lurking, and I know they're not done with me. It's been 5 days since Uray, and I'm back in Delta, locked in my apartment like a scared kid. Arms healing slow, stitches itch, scars gonna be nasty. Can't sleep. Every creak's that hum, every shadow's those claws. I called Mara, spilled it all. She's quiet, then says, "You're lucky you're alive." She's right, but it doesn't feel like luck, just a delay. I'm marked, and it's eating me alive. I hit the bar yesterday, needing noise. Poured drinks on autopilot, dodging questions about my arm. A regular, old guy named Cal, leans in, slurring. "Heard about Yankee Boy. Rangers don't talk, but folks go missing up there." He winks, like it's a joke, but my gut twists. Online's worse. Uncompahgre vanishings pulls up hikers, campers, gone quiet. One post mentions a tower, shapes in the dark. I'm not the first, and that's chilling. Nights are hell. I'm on the couch, TV blaring, when the power flickers. My breath catches, same vibe as out there. I grab a crowbar, knife's trashed, and check the windows. Nothing, but the air's heavy, waiting. Phone rings, unknown number. I answer, stupid move, and it's static, then Graves' voice, rough. "They track you. Stay low." Click. My blood's cold, and I'm barricading, table against the door, blinds tight. The hum starts, low, seeping through the walls. I'm cursing myself, should have stayed in Delta, slung beers, not chased the wild. Something scratches the window, slow, deliberate, and I swing the crowbar, smashing a lamp instead. The hum spikes, and I hear footsteps, jerky, outside my door. I'm yelling, "Leave me be," but it's useless. They're here, and they're pissed. Morning hits, power's back, and I'm wrecked. Curled up, crowbar dented from gripping it. Neighbor bangs, says I was shouting again. I mumble, "Bad dream," but he sees the gouges on my doorframe. Fresh, deep. "Dogs," he says, unconvinced. I nod, lying, and lock up when he's gone. Graves' words echo, "They track you." I'm moving, quitting the bar, leaving Colorado. Mara's coming tomorrow, helping me pack. My mistake was camping alone, thinking I could handle the woods. They're not mine. They belong to whatever's out there, and I crossed a line. I'm jumping at shadows, hearing that hum in my sleep. Last night, I saw Graves' rig parked down the street, lights off. He didn't move, just watched. The hum started after he left, louder, closer. I'm checking locks when the power cuts again, and something taps the roof, slow, heavy. I grab the crowbar, heart racing, and see it, scratches on the ceiling, fresh, like they're inside. They've followed me, and I'm out of tricks. Yesterday, I found a symbol carved under my sink, jagged, same as the dirt out there. They're claiming me, and I know what's coming. I'm Elias Navarro, 29 years old, and I live in Alamosa, Colorado. Been stuck in a funk, hauling freight for a living, staring at the same flat roads day in, day out. Needed a break, so I packed my Chevy Silverado and headed for Pagosa Springs. The San Juan National Forest up there's got this raw, untamed feel. Peaks, pines, a chance to breathe. I'm camping solo in the truck bed, just me, a sleeping bag, and a cooler of jerky and beer. Craving the solitude, and this is my shot. The drive's a beaut, highway cutting through valleys, Pagosa popping up with its steamy springs and cozy vibe. I'm not here for that, though. I'm aiming for a spot off West Fork Road, near a ranger trail I scoped online. Pull in as the sun's dipping, tires crunching dirt, and park in a clearing hugged by trees. The air's crisp, smells like damp earth and resin, and I'm already unwinding. I hop out, crack a beer, and lean against the Silverado, watching the sky turn orange. The truck's got a cap over the bed, so I set up quick. Blanket, pillow, flashlight. Feels like a fortress, safe and snug. I'm munching jerky, sipping slow, thinking how my sister, Veda, would have ragged on me for this. Camping alone's for weirdos, she'd say. Maybe, but it's my kind of weird. The quiet's deep out here. No trucks rumbling, no chatter. Just this heavy stillness settling in. Reminds me of late shifts at the depot, but wilder. I grill some jerky on a little stove, scarf it down, and kick back, soaking it in. The forest feels alive at dusk, shadows stretching long. I'm locking the tailgate, settling in, when I notice how dead it is. No crickets, no wind. Shrug it off. City nerves, probably. I climb into the truck bed, flashlight close, and sip another beer, letting it mellow me out. Veda texted earlier, asking why I'd go solo. You're nuts, she said. Grinned at that. She's not wrong. I'm dozing, half buzzed, when something jars me, a thud, solid, against the truck's side. I sit up, blinking, figuring it's a branch or critter. Grab the flashlight, sweep the beam out the window. Nothing, just trees and dark. Chill, Elias, I mutter, lying back. Probably a deer, right? Sleep's patchy after that. Wake once, needing to piss, and crack the tailgate. Moon's high, casting this pale, creepy glow. I step out, quick, and handle it. That's when I see him, scuff marks in the dirt, fresh, circling the truck. Not mine, I parked hours ago. Pulse kicks up, but I chalk it up to a coyote. Back inside, locking up fast. Lying there, I can't shake it. The quiet's thicker, pressing in, and those marks are nagging me. I shine the flashlight again, catch a flicker, low and fast, darting past the trees. My breath hitches. Animal, sure, but it moved off. Too slick, too quiet. By 3 a.m., I'm wired, staring at the roof. Flashlight's dim, and I'm straining to hear over my breathing. Then it comes, a low scrape, deliberate, along the truck's side. My heart's racing, and I'm thinking solo might have been a bad call. Morning hits hard, cold creeping in, my back aching from the truck bed. That scrape kept me up, and I'm out fast, checking the Silverado. The scuff marks are still there, smeared like something paced around. There's a scratch, thin, fresh, on the driver's side. Not a bear, too neat. My gut's twisting, but I'm telling myself it's nothing, just the woods being weird. I fire up the stove, hands shaky as I brew coffee. The forest silent, no birds, no breeze, just this eerie weight hanging over me. Sipping the brew, I'm staring at the tree lean, half expecting trouble. Wanted to hike today, check a trail up to Wolf Creek Pass, but those marks are messing with me. There's a ranger station a few miles back. Could roll by, see what's up. I decide to poke around instead. No sense wandering off with this vibe. Grab my flashlight and a crowbar from the toolbox, better than nothing, and circle the clearing. The scuffs trail into the trees, and I follow, heart thumping. Air shifts, faint stench, sour like roadkill. Reminds me of a wrecked rig I hauled once. I scan the pines, crowbar tight, but it's just me out here. Back at the truck, I'm restless. Crank the radio, static, no signal, and kill it. Veda's voice pops in. You're nuts. Starting to agree. I'm pacing, coffee cold, when I spot it. A smudge on the tailgate window, greasy, like a hand dragged across. My throat tightens. Wasn't there yesterday. I wipe it off, muttering, hikers maybe, but this far out. Nope. Midday's slow, sun's up, but the chill's stuck. I heat some jerky, chew it down, and decide to hit the ranger station. Need to shake this, maybe report it. I'm driving slow, trees blurring, when the engine stutters, dash flickers. Not now. I growl and it steadies. Stranded out here's a no-go, not with this feeling. The station's a log shack, radio antenna up top. I knock, nothing. Peering in, it's dark, desk, maps, no one. Sign says out on rounds. Perfect. I wait, leaning on the Silverado, scanning the woods. A twig snaps, sharp, off to my right. I spin, crowbar up, but it's just trees. My nerves are shot. This ain't normal. I head back, drive tense, every shadow twitching me. Pull into the clearing, and the air's heavier, like it's hiding something. I lock up, crack a beer, and sip, watching dusk creep in. Should have bailed to Alamosa, but I'm stubborn. I'm mid-sip when I see it, a figure, vague, at the tree lean. Tall, still, just watching. My chest tightens. Ranger? I flash the headlights, gone. Elias, relax. I mutter, but my hands are trembling. Night drops fast, and I'm in the truck bed, flashlight low. That's when the scraping starts again, slow, circling the Silverado. My pulse spikes, and I'm gripping the crowbar, staring into the dark. Something taps the window, once, twice, like it's knocking. I'm frozen, breath shallow, when the flashlight catches it. A shadow, long and twisted, sliding past the glass. My heart's hammering, and I know I'm not alone, not even close. I'm clutching the crowbar, eyes glued to that shadow slinking by the window, and my whole body screaming danger. The tapping stops, and the silence is worse, thick, choking, like the forest holding its breath. My flashlight's shaking, beam jittery, and I'm telling myself it's a trick, but I know it's not. This is scary as hell, and I'm smacking it. I kill the light. Maybe they won't see me, and hunker down, barely breathing. Then the hum starts, low, guttural, rattling the truck. It's not mechanical, more like a growl stretched thin, buzzing my bones. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it's inside, gnawing my head. Stop, I whisper, voice cracking, but it swells, splitting into sharp shrieks. The Silverado jolts, something slamming it, rocking me hard. I'm scrambling, crowbar slipping in my sweaty grip, when I hear it, scratching, deep, gouging the metal. I flick the flashlight on, catch a claw, black, hooked, carving the tailgate. My stomach flips. I bang the wall, yelling, "Get off!" And it stops, but I hear a thud, something heavy dropping outside. The hum spikes, and I feel it. Eyes, watching me from the dark. I crack the window just an inch. Cold air rushes in, and I see him. Two shapes, tall and bent, gliding between the trees. Too smooth, too wrong, like their joints are broken. I slam it shut, lock it, and they're circling tighter, scratching faster. The truck shakes again, and I'm swinging the crowbar at nothing, yelling to keep him back. One stops, right at the driver's side. The glass fogs, slow and wet, like it's breathing. I'm frozen, crowbar useless, thinking about Veda, should have stayed home. The fog smears, a long streak. Then it's gone, melting into the dark with the other. The hum drops, but my chest's tight. This is disturbing as hell. I wait, curled up, flashlight dimming. Time drags. Minutes, hours, who knows? I'm about to move when the radio crackles, static, then a voice, warped. Hours. I slam it off, but it loops, hissing that word. My skin's crawling, and I'm thinking about ranger tales, missing hikers, weird tracks. I sweep the beam outside. Nothing, but the station's lights flicker in the distance, a faint hope. I crank the engine, gotta go. The Silverado roars, and I peel out, tires spitting dirt, aiming for that light. The hum's chasing me, echoing off the trees, and something slams the side, cracks the window. I swerve, cursing, and keep going. Rear view's black, but they're there. I feel M stalking me. The station's ahead, dark, door ajar. I skid in, leap out, crowbar up, and barge inside. Desk flipped, papers trashed, blood streaked on the wall. My legs buckle. The hum's louder, footsteps crunching outside, and I'm trapped. I spin, beam landing on the doorway, and there it is, tall, skeletal, eyes like holes, staring me down. The hum's deafening, splitting my head, and it steps closer, claw tapping. I'm backed up, crowbar trembling, knowing I'm in deep, horror-filled shit, and there's no way out. I'm cornered, that thing in the doorway closing in, claw clicking, and my brain's yelling one thing: move. It lunges, and I swing the crowbar, crack its arm. It shrieks, and I bolt past, out into the night. The hum's everywhere, buzzing my skull, but I'm running, legs screaming, aiming for the Silverado. Gotta get out of here, gotta survive. I dive in, slam the door, and crank the engine. Tires screech as I peel out, clipping something that thuds hard. Headlights catch two shapes, loping fast, keeping pace. One slams the hood, denting it, and I swerve, yelling, "Get off!" It rolls off, but the other's clawing the side, shredding metal. My heart's pounding, and I'm pushing the truck to its limit, tearing down the road. It's chaos, trees whipping past, the Silverado shaking like it's done. Gas is low, been too panicked to check, and the engine sputters, dying on a bend. I coast, cursing, stranded in the dark. I grab the crowbar and flashlight, ditch the truck, and run, breath ragged, woods swallowing me whole. They're back, crashing through the brush behind me. The hum's rising, and I'm stumbling, beam bouncing. I hit a creek, cold, fast, and wade through, soaking me to the thighs. Hoping it throws them off, but they're right there, splashing after. One lunges, claw slashing my back, and I swing, connect, and keep running, blood hot down my spine. Headlights cut the night, a rig, roaring up. I wave, yelling, and it stops. It's a Ranger, lean, weathered, badge says Torres. He's out, shotgun up, barking, "Get in." I scramble in, blood dripping, and he's firing, blasts lighting up the dark. The shapes scatter, and he floors it, tires spinning. What the hell? I gasp, clutching my back. He grunts, "Don't ask." We're speeding toward Pagosa, Torres grim, radio crackling. "Old trouble," he mutters, glancing at me. My head's spinning. Old trouble? We hit town, lights blazing, and he pulls into a clinic lot. I'm hobbling out, blood soaking my shirt, and he's gone. No words, just a nod. The truck's sides gouged deep, claw marks fresh. Doc stitched me up, 15 stitches, back's a mess. Cops show, asking about the Silverado, the station. I tell them, shapes, blood, everything. But they're doubtful, scribbling like I'm nuts. They tow my truck, hood caved, side trashed, call it wildlife. I don't argue, truce Wilder. I'm at a motel, back throbbing, beer empty. Torres left a note, "Stay away." I'm staring at it, wondering what he's seen. I got out, barely, but that hum's still in my head, faint, waiting. They're out there, and I'm not safe, not really. It's been 4 days since Pagosa, and I'm back in Alamosa, locked in my apartment like a caged animal. Back's healing slow, stitches burn, scars will be ugly. Can't sleep, every noise is that hum, every shadow's those claws. I called Veda, told her everything. She's quiet, then says, "You're damn lucky." She's right, but it feels like borrowed time. I'm marked, and it's gnawing me raw. I hit the depot yesterday, grabbing my logbook. A driver, old guy named Rafe, asks about my limp. I shrug, fell hiking, but he sees the bandage, the way I flinch at the door. He leans in low, San Juan's got ghosts. Rangers know, won't say. My gut twists, he's not joking. Online's a nightmare. Pagosa disappearances pulls up hikers, campers, gone quiet. One mentions blood, shapes. I'm not alone in this. Nights are brutal. I'm on the couch, TV loud, when the power flickers. My breath stops, same vibe as out there. I grab a tire iron, crowbar's trashed, and check the windows. Nothing, but the air's thick, waiting. Phone rings, unknown. I answer, "Idiot move," and it's static, then Torres' voice, clipped. They follow. "Stay inside." Click. My blood's ice. The hum starts, low, creeping through the walls. I'm cursing myself. Should have stayed in Alamosa, hauled loads, not chased quiet. Something taps the window, slow, deliberate, and I swing the tire iron, smashing a shelf instead. The hum spikes, and I hear it. Footsteps, uneven, outside my door. I'm yelling, "Leave me alone," but it's useless. They're here. Morning comes, power's on, and I'm a wreck, curled up, tire iron dented. Neighbor bangs, says I was shouting again. I mumble nightmare, but he sees the scratches on my frame. Fresh, long. Cats, he says skeptical. I nod, lying, and lock up tight. Torres' warning echoes. They follow. I'm quitting freight, moving, anywhere but here. Veda's coming tomorrow, helping me pack. My mistake was going solo, thinking the woods were safe. They're not. They belong to whatever's out there, and I crossed them. I'm jumping at shadows, hearing that hum in my dreams. Last night, I saw Torres rig down the street, lights off. He didn't move, just watched. The hum started after, louder, closer. I'm checking locks when the power cuts again, and something scrapes the roof. Heavy, slow. I grab the tire iron, heart racing, and see it. Gouges on the ceiling, fresh, like they're inside. They've tracked me, and I'm out of moves. Yesterday, I found a symbol scratched under my sink, jagged, like the dirt out there. They're claiming me, and I know it's over.